Flip might show up. He might not. He's got work and stuff.
How are we sounding now? Are we good? We ready for this with the sound? Or am I too loud?
It sounds pretty good to me. I'm already recording.
You can't hear my cat meowing like crazy.
No,
right?
I hear it. But
Oh, you heard my cat?
I hear it, but it's not that big a deal. I think we probably all would have been doing this a lot easier if it was as easy as this 10 years ago, just sending a link and talking. But it was it was like way harder 10 years ago. So we were like,
well, dude, you know those YouTube videos I made with the sheet music in the background of my Quartet? It's all the program. I couldn't have done that 10 years ago. And then I get this program and I'm like, look what I did, Emily. And she's like, I'm not very impressed because it's really easy nowadays. I'm like, shut up.
You're not supposed to know my secrets.
And like you used to actually do that stuff too. You used to have to write it out with your hands and all that sort of deal.
Yeah.
Right?
Dumas, you got to catch me up, man.
Oh, yeah, you too.
I didn't know you had a kid.
I have two daughters, two stepdaughters, yes. Nice. 17 and 15. My 15-year-old's going to, great. My 15-year-old's going to homecoming tonight. Ooh. She has her first midnight curfew. Murray High. You know, where you were the homecoming king, Chris.
Murray?
Yeah. Chris was the homecoming king?
Yeah, he was everything king.
Chris was the king of Murray.
He walked into that school and it was like all those, when Chris walked into school, it was like any popular kid in any high school movie, except for he was aloof. He didn't know why he was so popular. He wasn't like either.
Britton Johnson was the homecoming king. I was the senior king, and
that's right.
I didn't even know it was going to happen. I remember I was just sitting there that day, and next thing I knew, I was getting called up to the thing. I was like, "What the hell's going on here?" I had no idea. But
you were so popular. You were so popular that you were even more popular than the kid who was the most popular guy, Britton Johnson, who was, the most popular guy of your grade. But that was pretty funny.
Playing in the NBA and all that stuff. But the only reason I was more popular is because I hung out with the goth kids, I hung out with the skater kids, I hung out with, and it's usually because it's like in none of these groups do I feel like I really fully fit in with, so I just kind of like travel around.
I was talking to Matt McQuillan about you, and he remembers one thing about you. He said he was always super nice to Matt, my brother Lloyd, and he always looked out for him because he was picked on a lot. I was like, yeah, that sounds like Chris.
I guess it's kind of the same thing we're still in to do. I've always been a bully of the bulliers. So
dude, I know.
If I saw somebody being a bully, I'd go bully the bulliers. And if I was big enough to. I mean, the guys a grade older than us, they were a bunch of ruffians, probably Damon's age. Did you know the Murray guys your age, Damon? I think you were a year older than us in school.
Are you 96, Damon?
I'm 96, Hillcrest. But
those guys were good to me. Johnny Ritchie was.
They were good guys, but they were ruffians.
Didn't Britton have an older brother?
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, funny. He was he was in the MTC with me.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, and he was slamming the ball on everybody. We'd go to the basketball and the basketball arena all the time, at the MTC, and everybody gets all competitive, and he would just slam the ball on everybody's face. It was great.
I didn't realize he went on a mission.
Yeah. 97.
I guess we never talked about that.
He's Spanish speaking. You didn't know that, did you?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
San Diego.
There you go.
Jeff was real bummed out because when he was on that mission, that year when he was his first year on the mission, when the Utes went to the NCAA finals, he had to miss out on that while everybody else was there hitting it. And if you remember, Britton got a nationally famous accusation that he called a guy an N-word in the Kentucky game, like the second to last game. And then the guy backtracked on it and came out and apologized and said, no, he didn't say anything like that. And so Britton was himself in the middle of 25 years ago, and I personally knew the guy who was going through a national accusation of calling somebody an N-word. 20 years ago, is it like 25 years ago?
Yeah.
Yes. 25 years ago.
So he's an OG.
It's your 25-year high school reunion, Chris.
I'm going to pull up the article on that. So I'm going to go ahead and this is Damon and James. Known them both for a while. Damon's been hanging out, watching the channel. James has already been on the channel for our episode on, what did we cover? The music and...
it was music. It was piano.
Just music theory is racist.
Classic
remember?
Music theory is racist, and us contesting that.
Did you see that on the side here real quick? Did you see that clip? Dennis Prager talking about how they're taking out all the classical music now because they were white males.
Oh
yeah, that's what that episode was about.
Me and Chris have discussed this forever, but like I've been seeing it happening in at the educational level, like all through college and stuff. The emphasis on making sure that we kind of steer away from talking about the composers for what they do, and they're white men, and then holding up anyone that wasn't white. And it's just, I thought, all about just figuring out who was the best genius. But the word genius is white supremacy too, according to in the video. He covers that clearly.
Yeah,
it's just like I don't get that one either, because Thomas Sowell's a genius, and so is Scott Joplin, and I guess
they no longer measure on the merits of the value of quality that's created through the music. It's purely just was it a white male or not? You know.
I mean, look, here's the thing. It's like there have been people, and this is just true, that have struggled to like Wagner. Wagner is very, very good. He's a genius, amazing composer, but he was such a horrible human being that even Nietzsche, who was his close friend, resigned, saying, I can no longer morally find any reason to be friends with this man. He was a complete anti-Semite. He was purely a racist. He hated everybody that wasn't a German. And he was an awful person. And I've struggled to like his music simply for how horrible he is, but you can't deny what he was, you know? And so I think I didn't understand when Chris was showing me that. Like, I thought we got over this because Wagner was already the worst of the worst, you know? Wagner is, when they say a horrible white person, he was a pretty bad one. But then they try to say that Shakespeare was like Wagner. And it's like, no, he wasn't. No, he was just not. So
here's Britain. This guy is like, I grew up around him right when this was going on. I was hanging out with him a bunch. So my girlfriend in high school, her older brother was one of the main basketball coaches. So he just stayed hanging out over there forever. So I got to hang out with Britain a ton right before the missions. Mm-hmm. And, you know, we'll still chit chat once in a while here and there, but he's a 19-year-old kid, 18-year-old kid, troubled UNC player. Look at, do you think this is how this would be done today? This is 1998. Troubled UNC player recants slur in the chart. Troubled UNC player. Like, yeah, right. They would say that this way. Utah's Britton Johnson never used a racial slur during the NCAA tournament semifinals, and he accepted an apology from his accuser just hours before last night's national title game with Kentucky.
That wouldn't even happen today. Like,
yeah, they would take the person.
Jesse Smollett. It's not. They wouldn't apologize. They double down and say, "Yeah, he did, and you don't have to believe me. I know my truth." So
it's unfortunate this whole thing happened. Johnson said in a telephone interview from his hotel room 6 hours before the championship game. So this is all a headache in the middle of going into the championship NCAA game, you know, against the Wildcats. In a way, I feel bad for the kid. He's a senior, and it was his last game. Some people don't think before they do things. It's really nice that he apologized. It helps out a lot. I wouldn't in a million years use that word. Now, could you just imagine the same story today? And
there's no apology today.
Yeah.
That guy doesn't come back and apologize.
It's so funny because it got to be such a big story back then that even like one of the little guys, he was kind of this funny dude that Kevin and I both know him really well, that he was just kind of from our friend group. He was kind of like a shy guy. He got on Jim Rome because he was Britain's friend to talk about Britain's integrity. It was one of the weirdest times ever. It was so funky. Then just like a few months later, we were all on missions, and
that's crazy though.
Yeah, it's wild.
He's the OG. He's the OG of the false accusations.
Yeah, probably was what you were saying. If it happened today, you'd be guilty. And even nowadays, if he was popular or famous enough and somebody got wind of it, they would re-dredge it up and re-examine it all and decide that he was guilty.
I've heard this before too. Like I've heard like some kind of equivalent of, you know, today, even if it was found untrue, like, well, it doesn't matter. Someone did it somewhere, surely, right? Yeah. Like it doesn't matter if Britain did it or not. There's got to be a white guy that was saying that day. So
white guys from Utah are likely to speak like that. So somebody
it brought attention to a problem that's probably happening. It's like so weird.
Yeah, it's just the perpetual witch hunt. So we got to find it somewhere so we can validate ourselves. Yeah.
So that guy, my senior year, that guy was homecoming king and I was senior king. So I'm tangentially connected to a national race. Yeah, right.
I think we need to get together and make a high school movie about your life, but fictional.
Yeah. Well, in high school, we could make it over at East High. We played games over at East High where the High School Musicals played. So speaking of that, we wanted to get into poker. And James and I, did you ever pay out on this? We played a long poker match, and the losers of the poker match had to watch all the High School Musical. And
I watched like half first. It was rough, man. I sat down to watch. And you made me to make up for it. You made me watch Double Down. So
yeah, we made him watch that, a really bad movie by Neil Breen. That's right. So you have paid in full on that.
I've paid that.
That was the bet. On a poker,
it was the bet. We used to play all these poker games where we weren't betting with money, so we bet on terrible things for the loser. And
we used to do brutal things to each other when we lived in Vegas. We we'd be at home, not playing poker at the casino, but we'd be playing to practice. And we wouldn't be playing for money, so we'd play for stakes. And sometimes Chris would be like, okay, if you lose this tournament, whoever loses this tournament has to call an all in or go all in with the 7 deuce in real life next time they have it.
And then we do that at the real poker tables.
We did it at the real poker table. And
that's
and
perfect.
And one time we were at the Orleans and Chris cashed out and I was up. I was up and Chris like, I've cashed out. I gotta go. I'm like, cool, I'm just gonna look at this one hand. And he's standing behind me. And a person under the gun raises like 50. And I look at my cards and it's 7-2. And he sees them and I'm like, son of a bitch, all in. And then they call and have pocket aces. But they didn't have a lot of money.
And the whole table's looking at him like, what are you doing?
Why are you going all in with 7-2? And it's like, I lost a bet.
Hey, he paid his dues, right? He paid his dues.
Well,
yeah.
Then the moral question comes, well, if Chris is standing behind me, do I do it or I just fold? Because I know I have that bet to play. So it's almost like the giant FYOFC was Chris coming right behind me at that time. Oh, Chris, you might want to explain FYOFC.
Yeah, that's my religion. For years, I've talked about what my one true religion is. And this is something where I believe a metaphysical thing that's true that you just can't get away from. And it's fuck you one fucking car. What that is you could be driving in the middle of the night, in the middle of nowhere, and you're not going anywhere. And then you come to some random intersection in the middle of no place. And somehow there's some other car getting to that intersection right at the same time as you, or you're going to go lane change or something like that. And there's no cars for round. And then you look and somehow right in your thing, there's some car right there. And, but it applies to anything. So you still say FYOFC. If James, the second he gets 7 deuce, he's been playing all night. And the second he gets it is when I'm right there to verify that he's got 7 deuce and he's got to play.
It works too, because FU1 effing Chris.
Oh yeah, FYOFC.
I can keep it FYOFC.
Yeah.
Nice. That's funny.
Like my cat who's loving on me right now for some reason.
I remember one time playing poker with you guys. I think it was at Dumas. It was at your house. I think it was at your mom's house.
Oh yeah.
And I remember I had quad aces and I slow played them.
Oh my god.
And I pulled Dumas in. And then I remember when I won that hand, Dumas was just so pissed at me. He's like, why did you slow play? You had quad aces and you just act like you had nothing. Like, what's going on? What did you slow for?
I mean, I might have been drunk. Was I drunk? I was drunk often.
Probably. Yeah. You might have been, but you were just irate that I didn't, act.
Chris has some of those best stories of me being angry at people.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk about poker today. We played a little bit. Damon knows poker. James and I were basically rounders in Vegas for a few years.
I successfully didn't have a job for a year and was living on my own until I decided to really lean into that.
Until you lost it all in poker.
No, blackjack and craps.
I know. But you also did one night of going and playing stakes way above.
Oh yeah. Trying to play against those $5,000 buy-in with my whole bankroll. That was. And then I got lucky. I got lucky because my mom had entered me into a video poker tournament at like the MGM. I lost everything, by the way, when I first moved there. And then I got lucky. I took second place in a video poker tournament for like $6,000, the amount I left. And I remember going, okay, I'm never doing that shit again. And I did do really good for like 7 months and then tilt.
But you had another night where you played too high again. And I remember you were on the phone with me while you're playing, which probably wasn't good because you're probably giving stuff away to people, but you were like sitting there like, man, I'm down. Wait a minute. I got jacks. Oh my gosh, I got jacks.
Yeah, I know. That night I came out okay. That night I came out 1,000, but went down 3 before I got there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, if you have a bankroll for it, those stakes going down 3 is just like going down the first hundo or something. But
so we played in an era where poker got super huge, and it got huge because maybe around like the Legends of the Matt Damon movie Rounders or something like that.
There was that, but also Stu Ungar just died.
Stu Ungar just died. Doyle Brunson had his book out, and his power poker thing got.
The funny thing is you're bringing these charts up. I knew we were going to talk about this. That's when David Sklansky's Theory of Poker got republished, because that you got to realize David Sklansky and Mike Carroll wrote those books in the 70s, right? Yeah. And they were just popular underground poker books, right? And I think the theory of poker to me is one of the greatest theory books ever written on a topic. I liken it to music theory in a lot of ways and how you can view it, but these even go beyond that because there's a lot of art to Skolansky's sort of.
Yeah, it has like the aspects of like mathematical evaluations, but as well as like a social like manipulation piece. Like
Yes, it keeps
using your eyes and whatnot to play with people.
It keeps in mind the human instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what we're getting at is like everybody knows the legends of poker, the songs of poker, the country music of poker, the cowboy poker, the James Bonds of poker, the Maverick the movie. I remember Kevin and I used to laugh our asses off at this Ernest movie of Ernest playing poker. There's this part where he bluffs and he gets called on the bluff and he has nothing and he shows the nothing, but he just shows it with like a face of like he has Damon's 4 aces. You know, he's like, here it is. And the person says, you don't have anything. And he just goes, fiddly-dee.
I've always liked poker, but it wasn't until Rounders that I discovered Texas Hold'em. And then I discovered Stu Ungar. Stu Ungar's the main reason why I got into Texas Hold'em was because, I mean, I didn't realize there was like a Mozart of a card game. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and there really was a level of playing where there was, like these guys were just saying, there was a science, a math to it, and an art to it. One of the reasons we want to talk about it is as time's gone by, especially in the last 10, 15 years, the art part's getting lost entirely. It's getting lost into AI systems, as you can imagine, like so many different things are.
Well, you said a science, an art, and a math, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So see, when I hit so those 3 things to me. So if you take someone like Stu Ungar, he just naturally had those boxes filled somehow. And what people do when they don't have his talent is they have to focus on the math more. So that's good. So people who aren't as gifted as him can understand certain elements, right? But they will lose they might not even have that human element to begin with. Does that make sense?
Yeah, there's definitely a psychology to it. And I think the psychology is the more interesting part, especially when you sit down, you know, at a live table, not one of these computer tables, but you go to like Wendover or Vegas and you sit down with people and you're there, there's a super psychology to it.
Yeah, and that's not only fun to play more that way. I'd say it's what was more fun to watch. It's why there was movies of it. It's why it got super popular in the 2000s, watching what Johnny Chan and Eric Seidel and who's the poker brat? I shouldn't be forgetting their names.
Phil Hellmuth.
Phil Hellmuth and Phil Ivey and Daniel Negreanu. This is Skolansky right here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's Skolansky. He's a nice guy. I've met him a couple times. My question though, with all these new poker charts and stuff, right? And you might have to explain it, but because I'm just going to ask you, Chris, because you know Mike Caro pretty much nailed it on the head with the law of loose wiring. And that's just the law of loose wiring in people in general, not just poker. That we are at our whim, because the law of loose wiring says that even when we know what we want, or have good expectations, we may be erratic, and we're more erratic when we don't have connection to dang it. Well, the law of loose wiring is amazing, and I wish that I had like a quote of it, but
that's all stuff, and it still applies when you're playing to people who aren't playing the style. But the truth of it is just like so many other things, and I've wanted to liken it to the NBA a little bit too, and stuff like that, in the sense of the truth of it is you can game the game. You can game the game by getting rid of all your emotions, getting rid of all your stuff, and learning some charts. And the charts can get in depth enough that the answer is just do what the chart says, no matter what. Like don't think, don't look at the guy's eyes, don't do this or that, the other. Just follow the charts, and the charts can AI out the game for you. That no matter what, over time it will yield these results.
Yes, but then there's a person in there though who over time who starts seeing trends of losing playing right could still get angry, right?
They could, but their whole entire thing is like take the story, take the game, take the person out of it, and just play the charts. Just play the charts. Just play the charts. Just play the charts. And one of the ways that they really started putting this into practice was by online multiplay. You know, so they'd have like 10 tables going on at once. And when they were playing 10 tables going on at once, all you do is think of the chart, play the thing, play the thing, play the thing. Forget all the story, forget all the legend, forget all the everything. Just play the charts. And It works. It works. I don't know how well it works once you get chart versus chart type stuff, and then it kind of just gets down to who's doing the math better or following the charts better. But one of the things that's happened is, have you noticed how just in the last 10, 15 years, who's the poker champs?
I don't know. I haven't actually
Name
paid
one,
attention.
name two, name three.
Even if I paid attention, would I not know?
There's no poker champs anymore. There's that legend is gone. The story is gone. Like,
well, yeah, but there's got to be bracelet winners.
There's bracelet winners, but they kind of like rotate around to different like IT kind of looking kids, and nobody's really that impressed because all they did was follow the chart.
Oh, I see. Okay, but but from what you're saying, it sounds like it applies best online. So how does it apply good?
I think it applies to tournaments more than cash games. So
yeah,
if you follow the charts. But have you guys ever gone deep into a tournament and played up to like the winning table?
I've won 3 over 100-person tournaments. That's
how long did it take?
Hours and hours.
It's so exhausting. It's such an exhausting exercise.
I've won 2 and split 7 pots. And I've always been I'm usually the guy that offered us the chop. I remember I was playing a tournament in Wendover, and I had more chips than anybody, and there were 6 players left, and I was like, "You guys want to chop it?" And this one guy wouldn't. He got out, and I'm like, "You guys want to chop it?" And I took the one guy didn't want to do it again, and he got down to 1 chip, and I liked the guy, and so he's like, "Can we still chop?" I'm like, and I look at the table, and I'm like, "Yeah, but you have to give everybody else an extra 50." And we did it, and it was, but to get to that point was forever. But then once you're right there, the chip stakes are so high, man. It could be like, you look like you have like a ton of chips, and then 2 bad hands, and boom, you're down right there.
Yeah.
I wish this movie was a good movie with Michael Imperioli playing Stu Ungar. It just wasn't that great. Like, it's great casting and a good idea, but it just wasn't. There's Phil Ivey.
Yeah.
Ivey's a legend.
Yeah, Ivy's a legend. But this is what I'm talking about, is the last Legends came out of 2010s-ish, when it was still, Rounders time, where there was still legend of it, where there was still personalities, and you cared about personalities. And it got to a point where, like, James and I, probably you too, Damon, knew like 100 different guys' names for their poker play and poker styles and all that sort of stuff. We knew Stu Ungar.
There's got to be an element to the rediscovery of these guys in the 90s and 2000s with us. You know what I mean? Like, they were hidden legends for so long. And now, like you said, it's just like a turnover of these IT guys that nobody's going to care about. I mean,
so this happened during this Daniel Negreanu versus Doug Polk. And Doug Polk, he's an interesting dude, because like he's an interesting like internet personality and all that stuff. But he had a long-running standing challenge to all these old famous poker pros who were famous for making tough reads. Daniel Negreanu is the king of tough reads, right? And to me, the thing that's fun to watch as a spectator, the only reason you watch as a spectator is to catch Daniel Negreanu making crazy reads like that, which is he sensed that guy was weak. How did he know that guy was weak, But these guys, the younger generation, is take that all out. Who cares? We're not going to ever do that. We're not going to ever even kind of bluff in that way. We're just going to play the chart. And so they had this major, like 6-7 month long online double table tournament, these two, to prove Doug Polk. Doug Polk was saying, Daniel, you can't beat the system. And Daniel's kind of the king of the old style of like, and they played live, and they played in person live. And I think this is them playing in person live, and Daniel won in person live, right? But then when they took it to the internet, and I'm telling you, they played like every other night. It was something like they were going to play until somebody lost or won $1 million or something like that. And every single night for hours, every single night across months through COVID, just to show old style versus new style. They played double table every single night, and Doug Polk just won. And he just won over time. Daniel started figuring it out, but Daniel started figuring out the new way. That's
well, I mean, like, so super charts aside, what if he's playing his super game against, say, David Skalansky, who's playing by his theory of poker, which suggests almost the same thing. You play the odds the same no matter what, and always make sure the odds are in your favor. If you do that over time, you'll win.
Yeah, it's Skalansky style, but it's Skalansky style on crack, because it's like they even break down. If you saw on those charts, they break down like what hand you see when that hand comes up, what you do when you got that hand.
Well, yeah,
like it's all mapped out for you. It's all
if you
mapped
always
out.
put 7-1 odds on your straight draws, open straight draws, and you take it every time, you're going to win 3 of those in theory.
Yeah, and it's all mapped out. It's mapped out to the point of where we're not watching this guy's brain. We're watching how well he remembers a chart. Does that make sense? Whereas Daniel Negreanu, we're watching his gut instinct.
Well, he's got instinct, but I'm sure Negreanu also weighs the odds. Like, if
of course he knows stuff, yeah.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, if Daniel Negreanu is looking over and he sees the guy has 4,000 in front of him, he can use implied odds to say, well, I got this guy for the 500 he bet, but probably the 4,000 if I did.
But here's the flip end of it. Is part of his game and part of what your and my game and Damon's game always was the big bluffs, the psychological element, the playing with people's heads, all that sorts of stuff. If this guy's just doing chart actions forever and ever, and they purposely do that, it eliminates all that. You know what I mean? They're just going to make the same move every time and answer every time what it is or not.
I mean, I guess, but it's like weird because when I started reading Caro's book of Poker Tells and I started really paying attention, I actually started getting results and knowing what people had. Like, you know, I was able to actually read people a lot better. There is an element, there is something to all of it, I think, isn't there? I mean, maybe that's what I've been arguing with everything. Why can't we have all of these combined? But,
oh yeah, that's what the style of thing they do is they say we're going to play 20,000 hands, and unless you lose like some unacceptable loss of number, and then they chart it like this, like in this AI way of like what stuff happens over time and all that sort of deal. Negreanu just couldn't keep up. It just like this chart shows. It just the AI style, and that's kind of their point, is you play our AI style, it's just going to win out. It's just how it is. And what my major point with that is that yes, they're right, but nobody cares about poker anymore. You know, and
I still watch it. I love watching the WS.
It's fun to catch here and there or whatever. But what I mean is like
WSOP,
it's the same. This is why I wanted to kind of liken it to basketball in the sense of people still watch basketball, but nobody watched it like they watched it when Jordan was playing. And part of that deal is like you lose some of the legend, you lose, and so that brings my question, like the layers. It's kind of, Peterson talks about it in like these Paget level things of playing the games or the iterations of games over time. Mm-hmm. And really the concept is like, so what game are we playing? Are we playing win the most money you can in this specific second or this tournament, or is the game of poker going to just altogether just kind of start shifting down? Like, so that's what happened with the NBA is they started gaming the numbers in the NBA in a Moneyball style, and they realized I think every kid in the world who ever played basketball figured this out faster than NBA coaches did, that jacking threes wins games, you know, and
as long as you hit them,
as long as you hit them, you can live or die by it. But then of course, the more you jack them, the more you play them, the better you get hitting threes, and you can win major games. But the thing is, like, the game gets boring to watch over time, and it gets less interesting, and you lose characters, you lose there's nowhere near as much crunching in the middle and people who's the best. And like, so what my point is that what wins, what is correct, what gets stuff done, the AI concept is always like, look, we can efficiently make everything perfect. And then at the same time, it loses story. Does that make sense?
It loses it loses something. It starts to feel, it's like I was listening to some really good like orchestral music that was on some of the best digital sounds. It sounds too perfect, and even though it doesn't sound like Nintendo anymore, you know what I mean? There's still an element to it that's been taken out. I can't explain it. I just can sense it when I hear it. And I'm just like, yeah, that's a digital orchestra. I know that's not real, as powerful as that sounds, like the sounds and all that. And the same thing with poker and basketball. Like, I mean, I was talking to Chris about this a while ago. I'm like, like everyone just makes threes now? And then my wife was watching and she's like, oh yeah, it's so boring now.
Have you guys seen that video where there's like high school kids and they're just each team just taking a turn hitting a deeper and deeper three, and they just keep hitting the three from like deeper and deeper.
They're good at
it's
it.
Like,
and
it's boring to watch. It's
cool.
There's no challenge there. So
it's cool for a minute to see people hitting threes, but after a while, I made a joke. I posted about it on Facebook, but maybe I'll pull it up. But I had just a picture, and I said, I'm about to get on a treadmill, and when I was getting on the treadmill, the NBA Finals was on, and I was like, me on this treadmill, and it's not a joke. I think I'm going to burn more calories than the entire two teams together in the whole half of basketball I'm watching here.
Oh, yeah,
because they're just they're just jogging up and down the court, jacking threes.
Well, see, the funny thing is I just watched a documentary about Larry Bird, and he was a three-point master, but he talked about how he didn't like to always just take them all. He liked to be in the game and getting it. He said that he said it. He just felt there was an art form to the game that he understood, right? And then, like, the people were kind of in the documentary were like joking about like how they couldn't believe that a guy that looked like that and was that awkward was so amazing on the court. But the best things that he ever did were up close, and then at the last minute, he throws the ball from half court and he sinks it, you know? Mm-hmm. But, I mean, was it because basketball was thought of differently back then? How come they didn't all become Larry Birds back then? If this new way of playing ball is, giving more results mathematically,
how come Google?
Google.
They weren't able to Google it.
But that's kind of what's funny about it is because, like, especially in something like the NBA, but poker, you can always understand that, like, if you're the person trying to make money, you just want to make that dang money. Give me the AI way, give me the reads, give me the whatever, and I'll just go in this and beat these guys who I'm playing tonight or whatever. But when you think of like the overarching concept of poker, like that thing that's got all the old legend written about it and all that stuff that we were crazy about watching in the 2010s, like we're losing the big interesting thing of it as a spectator sport. And the same thing sort of happens with maybe the money ball. I don't know, in baseball it might be better for it, but in basketball, it's they money ball out the game, and over time it just starts getting boring and more boring to watch. And you don't even know the different characters, and you don't really get to like the mean crunch each other, really take each other down matchups that we used to have. And I don't know, baseball, tell me, is it like that? I mean, it's pretty much baseball I sort of lost track of, although I still love it when I see it live.
Baseball's turned into that a little bit in terms of pitching. Like they'll make a lot of decisions referencing just a bunch of analysis data. There's some old school coaches, like for instance, that's kind of one of the things I like about Brian Snitker. He's the manager of the Braves. Is he doesn't pay attention to any of that. He goes by gut, and he just goes by like the feel that he has of the game. Where a lot of other managers have now bought into like analytics, and they make all their decisions based on, okay, well, what are the probabilities? It's like playing poker with baseball. Give me the rundown. If I play a queen here, what's my chances of beating the deck? Of being able to pull ahead or keep the game how I want it to go, or whatever the case may be, based on the analytics. And they're constantly just looking at like analytical reports of the different things that players do given a different situation. And, I don't necessarily think it's affected baseball as much, only because baseball is pretty difficult. There's a lot of things you can't really overcome. In basketball, you can be like 7 feet and you overcome a lot of things because you're 7 feet. In football, you can be 6'5", 380 pounds, and you overcome a lot of things because of that size. Baseball doesn't really have that element. Like you have to just know, you have to be capable of the skill. So
baseball is one of those sports, man, that they kind of, after a while, they play so many games, they do so many times, and after a while, they just know somebody is who they are, and that's what it is. I remember this movie by Clint Eastwood was talking about that same sort of concept of Clint Eastwood was a talent scout, and he was kind of an old school talent scout who says, I can tell by the sound of the ball and the sound of the ping in the bat and the sound of the way the ball hits the glove better than any computer system can tell it, or something like that. This is a pretty good movie, but
you're talking about baseball. My daughter Harper just left the 15-year-old. She's in softball.
Oh, nice.
And she's getting really good. She's a really good first baseman. She's a shortstop, and she's good at batting. And it was frustrating when she started a year ago, because as the parent, I was like, these kids didn't learn how to catch. This is driving me nuts. They didn't learn how to pitch because everybody was just getting ball, right? And then they'd get their 6 points balling out, and then it would switch over because you can't get more than 6 points because that's rude. And then finally, they were starting to get good, man. And it's true. It's like watching them get good at their individual things and then come together. And it's like, okay, cool. The catcher's good. The pitcher's good. Everyone in the outfield can catch. We're going to watch someone play ball finally. But when they all suck, it was terrible.
Yeah. I don't know. Is that Eric Lindgren? No, he looks too young, and maybe this is a long time ago. But I used to know names a lot of these different guys. Damon sent this. This is a super rare moment. People don't know
what
poker.
Year is this?
That's Eric Lindgren, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
No, it's way young.
Roble and Lewis.
Yeah, he's a different name.
For my sake, how old is this? Because I haven't been into watching.
That's pretty old. I
poker.
remember seeing this a while back. It's old.
Like when we were in Vegas, old. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think
this is like 10 years old.
Early.
Vegas was
2000s.
14, 15 years ago.
Well, you can tell by like the shape of the screen that it's an old.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, this is an older, but this was pretty crazy when it happened.
Yeah, the thing is, like, people watch enough James Bond or Maverick movies or Legend of Buster Scruggs, they think that quads versus quads happens all the time. They don't realize that, like, you can sit on. We have this bad beat jackpot where we would sit on hands forever, and if like anybody got sort of beat like that, everybody sitting at every table in every casino that was part of that casino got $200 out.
Yeah.
If that happened in the moment. It's like if you were playing over at the Red Rock and that happened at the Green Valley Ranch.
Dude, that happened to us once.
It never happened to me. I never got one.
No, you did actually. We were going to sit down at the Red Rock, and you said you want to go first, and I said no, you go ahead, and you sat down and you played one hand, and you got like $150, and then they called me to the table. I remember that because I was like, I should have said, yeah, I'll go first.
Yeah. So if a bad beat happens like this, usually these guys are playing top money stuff. But if you're playing for like $10 a hand, or $100 a hand, $200 a hand, if this bad beat happens, they've got a jackpot going up, and you'd be the happiest person in the world if this happened to you, because you suddenly got like $50,000 coming your way because it's so rare.
Yeah, but these guys are playing such high stakes that doesn't matter.
I was down in Vegas one time, and my cousin, we were playing at it was not really a strip casino. It was one kind of off the beaten path. I just can't remember the name of it, but it was nice. And he was sitting at a table, and he was, getting some good wins and had built up a big old stack. And then he caught a full house. I think it was like trip kings and 2 9s, and he went all in. And he'd been feeling really good about it. He had caught it on the turn, and then there was another guy that just kept calling him, and he was kind of blown away. He's like, why is he calling me? And then the river came. And that was the point when everything was kind of set up, and the dude that he was going against caught a straight flush. And my cousin, just like he had a cigar, he was sitting there smoking, and he snapped his guitar in half, or his cigar in half. He was so mad.
Jesus, I've been there a million different times. I just want to say, one of the things we lost here, what I mean by this is, like, this is old, and us watching this, we all know here that this guy with the 9s, he thinks he's playing the dude, right?
He thinks he's got it.
Yeah, he thinks so. You're watching this, and it's super interesting to watch this guy thinking that he's playing the dude. The problem is with the modern AI way, this hand would already be done, because even if they hit these hands or whatever, they both just would have been boom, 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 because neither one of them are playing psychological games on it. Does that make sense? Yeah. They're both just thinking charts in their heads, and they're not thinking of what the other person's face is at all. They're just boom, 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 boom. The hand would be done. But in this situation, back when these guys think that they're playing on the psychology, well, they were playing on psychology. That was what was most interesting about the game, is when you thought you were messing with people, or you have this situation where you think you're the overdog, and you're trying to sucker this guy in when you're already dead meat. And it's just so interesting to watch it, because he thinks he's the tiger in the jungle about to pounce.
Oh yeah.
Well,
and he has
water.
The crazy part is the river's a 9. That's what makes this thing. Oh, I shouldn't give it away, I guess. But
I mean, I think it's got it on the top right here. But the even right now, you're like, I got you, dude. The only thing he's thinking of, the worst that the guy could happen to have, is a queen 9. A queen 9. I've been shellacked by that a few times, but
Chris already said quads versus quads.
Yeah. So he might be thinking the guy's chasing a flush too, and he wants him to get there with the flush, if that's what happens. He might just think he has ace queen and he has trip queens and that sort of stuff. But one way or the other, if you got this hand, most times you're like, I got you, sucker, and you don't even know what I have. You can't even imagine what I have. Ha ha ha.
Oh yeah, like 90% of the time, 99% of the time.
He's sitting on a boat right now thinking, I'm going to just slow play this guy.
So what's so funny about it is, like, you're watching all the psychology of this guy who's dead thinking he's the predator. That's what's hilarious. Look at it, the predator in the grass.
He's doing his chips to,
Yeah.
to heighten the trauma or the drama going on here.
Yeah, he's playing a game in his head because he doesn't want to look strong or look weak. The problem is that this he's just keeping a straight face, which is probably better.
But
the other guy's like,
really?
The other guy's like, I don't want him to think I'm strong, but I am strong. But I also kind of want to give off that I'm weak, but I don't want to give him weak. But you can also just like feel the hunger of like, please put the money in, please put the money in. They're both just like, please put the money in.
Oh, yeah.
One of the worst things in the world is if you got quad cleans, and this has happened to me several times. My most major hands I've ever hit, because I played hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours and hours, a lot of poker, and I've only had true quads like this a few times.
Yeah,
see, that's what I was saying. The way I met Mark was weird because I beat him. Not bad beat him. I beat him with quads to his full house the first hand, and then a straight flush to his ace high flush the second hand, back to back in the World Series of Poker. And there was a Russian between us who just kept calling. And this is when we were playing 4-8 limit. And then he got out on the last hand, and then they said, you can go all in if you want, because it's just two of you. And I think I took Mark for like $800. And it was one of those things where I will never probably have back-to-back quads.
It's so rare you make a lifetime friend out of it.
Yeah. I went and bought him sushi after, because I'm like, here, let me pay. Let's go buy sushi with your money. But he'd never seen that. I had never seen that, and that was 2006. How many hours of poker have I played before I seen that? I haven't seen it since. That was 2006.
It's hard to describe. Like James played
16 years ago.
James played poker for a while like a full-time job. And beyond that, we played a bunch of poker too. But James played it. I'd go to work. I'd drop James off at the Bellagio, and I'd pick James up at the Bellagio after work. And he'd play poker the whole day.
Yeah, I remember you guys used to go down there and stay in like penthouses and stuff and just party.
Yeah.
Just party.
Well, there was a month or so, like right after I got divorced, that I just lived with James out of, what was that? We lived out of the Planet Hollywood. We basically lived in the Planet Hollywood.
Dude, well, that's another, you know what, speaking of tournaments, one of the tournaments I took 7th place in was at the Sahara. And it was right after you were feeling down because of the divorce. It was like you were going to go spend the night at Arizona Charlie's that night. And,
right in the middle of my divorce.
And we're playing a tournament.
One of the first big tournaments I won it, and she came right at the end of the tournament and grabbed up all the money.
So the Sahara's gone.
How did she even? The Sahara's not even there anymore. Yeah. And that was like a 105-person tournament, and I won it outright. And that was actually. Yeah. She didn't even know I was a poker player until she came in, but I guess that kind of gives you some hints as to how a divorce happened.
Yeah,
but and she of course had no concept of what that I just like won a 105-person tournament. Like it just didn't even register with her.
No, it didn't. Well, like when I first reconnected with you was at the World Series of Poker 2006 too, because I needed to wash my laundry, and then when I met up 2006.
Yeah.
And then you picked me up from the Rio and we were hanging out and stuff, and you were telling me how much you love poker. I was still under the impression you were a married Mormon guy. Yeah. You know? And
the thing is, we would go play single table sit and goes at what was that the Plaza in the old town of Vegas. Mm-hmm. And those single table sit and goes just for $30, you got to play like a 10-person tournament. And we would go there like I kind of liken it to like we grew up playing Saturday basketball in church, and we all got good at basketball, going every single Saturday to play some basketball in the gym. Well, me, Aaron, and James, we started hitting these single table sit and goes at the Plaza just for $30, and so it didn't cost very much, but you could win 300. But it was really more just cutting your teeth at trying to win a 10-table tournament, and we got pretty good at those to where we could win them pretty easily almost every time. But
Actually,
there's no sort of tables like that anymore. There's no like 10.
Well, that's the thing is you would have been good at it. I tried a couple of sit and goes at the World Series of Poker, so you could buy into like a $250 sit and go, and the winner would get like. I wouldn't be good at those because people gamed them. The way they would game them is like people had money and they had a lot of money, and it's like, what was the cost of one of those?
They just stack
it would be like
so they'd come in and they say, I'm either getting up big fast or I'm out. I'm not going to sit here through a whole.
Oh yeah, maybe. But
so they'd sit down and be like, boom, all in. I'm either doubling up or I'm gone.
I hate that. I know, but I met a couple of these guys, and and they told me off to the side that they come for these sit and goes. And so I don't know if they played that style. All they told me is they would play the sit and goes because the chips they gave you could only use to buy into events. They weren't real chips. So they'd get like, $3,000 in poker chips and then sell them to Phil Hellmuth for $2,000. So they'd save him some money on getting the chips and then they'd get real cash. And so I don't know if people still do that, but there was a bunch of people that would hit those sit and goes, not to get into the tournaments themselves, but to earn the chips to sell to the pros.
That stuff gets so crazy, man, because they realize when there's like top money, there's all sorts of people who stake people. I guess there's somebody, maybe I could pull it up, but I can't remember who it is. Somebody won the tournament outright and is getting sued because somebody staked him. And then he didn't give the money when he was staked.
They're pulling a good old Jamie. What's it? Jamie Gold? They're pulling a gold.
Yeah. Oh, actually, that might just be who it is. Yeah, Jamie Gold. Was it Gold or Goldstein?
Jamie Gold.
But he might be the last like major winner that we all know the name of, because there was a Fossil Man and the Ozzy Oi 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 guy.
Okay, so wait, so Ozzy Oi Oi Oi, was he 2007? So or 2006?
Right around then. Yeah,
I think 2006.
Hatcham.
I think 2006 was Jamie Gold actually, because in 2007 I was back down at the World Series of Poker with Mark, and Jamie Gold was playing blackjack, and people were throwing like popcorn and stuff at him while he was playing. He kept screaming at people. Nobody liked him. They were booing him, and it's like
Jamie Gold.
Yeah,
if ever there was, because we were talking about how hard it is to have a good run in poker, I would like to see somebody get the run of cards Jamie Gold got at the end of his run and lose, because man, did he run well on that last table. Like, it would be real hard to lose running as well as he ran in that one.
Yeah,
but that's the swings of the game. That's why we love the game, because there's tons of skill in it, but there's still just a percentage luck in there that you can't do anything about. And it kind of feels cosmic in a way, because it is a gambling game that you have some control over, but it's also a cosmic game, like in actual life, that there's parts of it you have no control over.
True. Yeah. Well, I mean, so that's the thing. It's like, I saw Rounders in '98 and I was like, oh, that's cool. I've never seen that kind of poker. Then I learned about Stu Ungar after he died, and I thought that was cool. And I always wanted to try and play down in Wendover and stuff, even in my early 20s, but like, I was just too nervous. And then when Stupid Moneymaker won, right? Like, everybody hit the poker bug, me included. Me and Ryan, we started hosting games at my basement, 3 times a week. I mean, I think if there's any cultural trend that affected me in a way that, affects most other people, poker was one of them. You know what I mean? Like, I usually don't get sucked into some of these things, but I got sucked into poker super hard, and it was because of that Moneymaker win, man. Something about that story fascinated me. Like, it
fascinated everybody. That was kind of like the reboom, but that's because Moneymaker kind of came out of nowhere as no one and beat the big names. And so then all of a sudden, it was the very next year that it went from like 1,500 people to 7,000 people or something.
I know, right? That must have been so crazy. And then what's his face won that? And who was the dude who won the 2004?
Fossil Man won the first big one.
Fossil Man, yeah. Didn't he? He made the final table the next year too.
Yeah, he made a couple good runs. He's a real. Well, I think at that time frame, most of the guys got through. I think Jamie Gold was the first person who got through that everybody was kind of like, you don't really play. But everybody else who kind of won up through that point, they were players.
I mean, I love that time period. 2006, 2007. I was down at the World Series both those years.
I saw them both in person. I met Fossil Man in person. I met the Ozzy. I think it's Hatcham.
Well, that's the thing is, in 2007, I didn't play an event. I only played the side tables, and I was playing against. I mean, that's when Todd Brunson sat down at the table and played with those. I learned how to play Chinese poker for Men the Master because he was sick of me standing behind him watching him. So he told me,
Men the Master.
Yeah, he's like, sit down. I'll show you how to play, baby.
What's that? What's Chinese poker?
Chinese poker. It's a 13.
Oh, it's so fun. James and I we should play it one night. We used to sit. You gotta have 4 people, right?
You gotta have 4 people. You deal out 13 cards to everybody, and you basically make 3 hands, two low-ranking hands, and 1 big hand. So it's like super pie gap.
It's basically just dumb luck. Who gets the best quarter of the day? Because there's no way to.
So, like, if my 3 hands beat all of Chris's hands, he gives me a chip. But if my 3 hands lose to Damon's, I give all the chips Chris just gave me to Damon, and then Damon figures out who he beats. And so, one time I was actually playing. Chris had dropped me off at the Bellagio one morning, and I was getting to my table, probably a 2-5 or 1-2 no limit table. And inside the big room,
the dealer will, like Pie Gal, they'll rearrange it for you to your best hand. So it's basically just who gets dealt the best quarter of the deck. But it's real fun to sit around with your friends and play that, you know.
But I was getting there at the Bellagio, and inside was it Bobby's room? It's Bobby's room, right? Where all the pros play in the Bellagio. Yeah. Inside the Bobby's room, there was like 4 people playing poker. One of them was Phil Hellmuth, but they weren't playing Texas Hold'em. And Phil Hellmuth came out, and he was really mad. And he said to a guy at a table next to me, he's like, come on, let's go get breakfast. And it was a friend of his who was playing a much lower stake. And he was really complaining about how he just lost like $200,000. And his friend's like, why are you playing Chinese poker, Phil? You're not the world's best Chinese poker player.
Well, nobody's the best. I mean, it's just who gets the best quarter of the deck. You know?
But it was like kind of funny to see this guy who's clearly a friend of his calling him out on, why are you complaining about losing $200,000 in a game you shouldn't be playing?
What was I going to say? You said Men the Master, and you said Baby. That's Win, right? Men the Master is the dude with the mole with the big hair that comes out of it.
He said Baby too. He said Baby to me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Who's the baby? Scotty Wynn. I met Scotty Wynn over at Harrah's one night playing.
I didn't meet him. I saw him come in just to show somebody that he was on the wall.
Yeah, he came in and just like waved at everybody.
Oh, yeah. We were playing. We were at the same place. He walked in. He said, "See, baby, I told you I'm on the wall."
Yeah.
And then he just left.
He was cool. That was the same night I was playing with Chuck Norris's son.
Yeah, and we've also played with Jose Canseco.
I hit a set on Jose Canseco at the
Orleans, but right before I had to go to the airport. I was almost late for my flight because I wanted to keep playing poker with Jose Canseco.
Yeah, it was set over set. He had a set, I had a higher set. I hit that on Jose Canseco.
So I was reading more about that Scruton thing you sent me last night, and it's just frustrating. Like I keep thinking every time I read.
Let's go ahead and keep this in. Say what it is.
Well, just the
effing the Ineffable.
Effing the Ineffable. No, I want to talk about that later when we get to music, but I wanted to say this. Every time I read something that's Scruton that I didn't know, I'm like, why is it that it's the curse that I didn't know this man in college? You know, all those struggles and conversations we had in college where I'm hitting my head going, why is it so hard?
Because it was hidden. Like people who had these sorts of ideas. And of course, inside of that same article, he dropped all these names of people that obviously if you read, they're going to think the same thing. And we don't know any of those names. Like he had all these weird names in it.
But that's the other thing too. It's like, I wish that I knew him then. I'm glad I know him now, but I'm really frustrated too. Like nobody knows who he is. Do you know how many people have heard my quartet or seen this stuff? So who's Roger Scruton? It's like, God, the world is really not doing good if he's not.
If they did know who he was, they'd have some sort of negative.
I heard that he had said some things about the gays once where he
didn't say anything. He just said the same stuff as Peterson or whoever. He ended up getting canceled off of that beautiful architecture committee because he supposedly said something that was bad about.
He said that oftentimes bisexuality and women's confusion more than anything. I don't know.
This absolute Tonkunst. Yeah, I was going to get into because kind of the whole idea is the AI versus the human gut type idea.
He talks about something in here though. The one thing I keep trying to wrap my finger around is okay. There is something about actual talent that is you understanding these weird science and mathy things more instinctively than other people. And that's why, say, a Mozart or a Stu Ungar had a special thing for music or poker, right? And so that's what we've always been trying to capture. Mozart comes along, blows our minds. How did he do that? We spend 200 years analyzing the man, and we have to resort to math because nobody's been able to figure it out yet, you know? That's how I always took it. That's how I always took it. I always took it that the big geniuses were the ones that were born with the wires in their brains open to understand that stuff better. You know what I mean? And now it's like, that's not even the case. It's like, oh, everybody can be Beethoven. I don't think so.
No.
So Douglas Murray actually pointed me to this article, Effing the Ineffable, which is Roger Scruton writing about music and how like there's this transcendence. It kind of gets into Kant and all that sort of stuff.
He touches on one thing. He touches on one thing very important at the very beginning, where he discusses that music today is more heard than listened to. The art of listening to music has been lost. Most people like it in the background. It's a background form of music. Even when you're writing songs, you're not serving the full music. You are using words with music. And so he says, there is a way to listen to music that is for the sake of the sound only, but that's been lost today. And that's why, and I didn't realize how lost it was until I kept writing all these pieces of music going, nobody cares.
There's some level that you do, you got to go put your attention, focus on it, listen to it live. I know Damon does a better job than I do of going and catching and listening to live bands.
I have to assume if you went to my string quartet and were there, you were forced to not be able to skip. You had to sit and listen to the whole thing, right? Was that better than being able, if I had just recorded it and sent it to you, I'm having a hell of a time.
No, it's way better, but there's also something about the pomp and circumstance to it, that you get dressed up and you have it in the hall and everybody comes in and sits quietly and faces one direction.
And he says in here, reverence to listen to just the sound. You know what I mean? Like,
send me a link to your song. I'll put it up here for a second. But this is Effing the Ineffable by Roger Scruton. James dedicated his quartet that he performed at the university, or had professionals perform at the University of Utah just recently, to Roger Scruton. I want to finish that hand of quads though. Let's finish that.
Oh, me too. Yeah, get back to that.
I also wanted to read that article, so if you'll link it, maybe.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Story. It's all about story, because I want to get into like the AI Dall E Images and the new AI music that's coming out and all that stuff. Damon's the computer savvy guy around us and knows about coding and all that sorts of stuff. And
kind of
well, and more than we ever would. He knows a lot about blockchain and all that sorts of stuff. And there it is, quads. So this guy is just, if I ever got that, I would be like, I can't believe this is happening to me.
Well, you like you pointed out earlier, you could justify him thinking he won before that, because that's just rare. You know, to get beat with 9 split queens when you flop that queen 9 queen is already rare.
Yeah. So Mark Twain said, and we always would quote stuff like this, that learning how to play 2-pair correctly is as valuable and as costly as a college education. And I believe that's totally true. I 100% believe it's true. Having gone through college, I do believe I learned more through my poker days than all of humanities college put together. But there is some sort of sense of like learning something from thinking that you have the most made hand in the world, and then getting your face rubbed in the mud. Like, you got to go through it, man. But then there's like this other level, like you take the most atheistic person in the world, like take Flip. You and I a couple times took Flip to the Wendover, and 2 different times, Flip's very good at poker, and 2 different times, right on the final hand, when he was way up, he got shellacked right when we were going home for doing the right thing. Does that make sense? Like he made the right choice and then ended up still losing when the river card came 2 different times for his whole entire amount that he built up over 6-7 hours. And if it went how it was supposed to go, like he made the right choice. He did the coin flip for the 80% over the 20%, and he had the 80%. Or he did the coin flip for, you know, and then he got shellacked for all of it. And right as we were standing next to him saying time to go home. And the super atheist Flip in those moments can be like, I am positive the universe is not random. It's out to get me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't care how like atheistic you are. You will feel that. You will feel that in those moments.
The funny thing about poker is like that quote, you brought it up, Chris, reality bats last.
Oh yeah.
And poker really teaches that kind of concept, because you'll play your cards, you'll do your thing, you think you've got it made, you'll, you know, kind of like this guy here with his quad 9s, you've really put the math together, you've played the right body language, you've pulled the person in, and then the final reveal of the cards that's reality.
Yeah.
Now we get to see reality.
I mean, this can also be like reality in a certain situation where these hands are both monsters, right? And like, if you're ever in a situation where you think you're the best at something, and then someone comes along and they're just that much better than you, right? You know what I mean? It's like I kind of think of it like, it's weird. Emily's been watching that David Letterman thing. My next guest doesn't need any announcement. And the one with George Clooney was funny. I didn't know George Clooney was like a super baseball star, like the best baseball player of his high school, destined to be a professional baseball player. So out of high school, he went to baseball camp, and he's kind of being cocky and stuff. And all of a sudden, you know, he's hitting these balls, and then the pitcher is told to throw one of his fast curveball. And he said it came at him and it made this noise and it curved and it was so fast. And I realized at that moment that I'm like the level below pro. As good as I am, I'm like the level below the best. Right?
Yeah. Now, I mean, that happens. It happens to all of us. I mean, I got to growing up around NBA players, guys who made the NBA. I figured out real quick that the level between me and them, like you can imagine and play games in your head if you're watching on TV or something. But if you ever got to play with one in life, you realize real quick, like, holy crap, there is such a difference in skill right here. It's not even funny because we would play with like Britain. I grew up around Britain and Lance Allred, although he didn't hit his growth spurt till after he moved away from me. But Britain and his older brother, as Damon said, he knew his older brother dunking on people and he didn't even make the NBA. And
he would school people, man. He was so good. It was funny.
Yeah. And on my mission, strangely enough, from that same Utah team, friends with Britain, was Trace Caton. And me and Trace were around each other the whole time. And I actually got to be around Trace. Trace went through my same Spanish program at the U with me at the same time while he was playing for the Utes with Britain. And so I know Trace Caton really well, and I know Britain really well. And I got to play a lot with Trace. And we would play with these guys, and they would do stuff like say, if you guys get rim, you get a point. And we would lose 24-0, you know, and I'm not a bad basketball player, you know what I mean? It's just, they were so much taller, so much lengthier, so much. And it was just, and I hadn't played around and learned to alter my shot to shoot a crazy huge rainbow to get around it. They would just swat everything that we tried to do. And it was unreal. But the same thing sort of happens to you. It happens to you like even playing music. Damon was asking me the other day, like, could you play like any sort of person? And like, I can jam a lot of stuff, but there's a lot of sort of things I could play. But then every once in a while, you're going to come across somebody who's like, no, my fingers just don't go that fast.
No, I mean, it's like anybody who's ever said I'm the best pianist, they know it's like, you don't, what, I'm an average pianist. My hope is that I'm an exceptional composer. So it's like where my strengths lie is in making other people play the notes. I mean,
but James says he's an average pianist, and then most people would watch him play piano and be like, "You're not an average." But James is talking about comparing himself to he's been around major programs of high level performers.
I mean, even the best pianist at a music school may not become like have a career as a concert pianist. Would blow your mind that they don't. You know what I mean? Like, wait a minute, you don't have a career as a concert pianist? And it's like, and even at a certain level, what would separate like an Evgeny Kissin, who's a really famous classical pianist, or a Daniel Barenboim, who's a super, I mean, you guys, I don't even know if you know those names, but like Daniel Barenboim is maybe the greatest musician alive, right? He's a conductor and a pianist. I don't know about composing, but he basically did the greatest like recordings of Beethoven's piano sonatas and symphonies. The guy's such a jerk. He's like, so I'll play all of his sonatas, then I'm going to conduct all of his symphonies, and also I'm just awesome. Nobody knows who the hell he is,
so
except
those are
people like me.
But all those different things you mentioned, there are also just like different mountains that you can climb. Like you can be a composer, you can be a pianist, you can be, and just you can go extremely deep in each of those different, you know, pieces, and you can't be the best at all of them. You're just you got to take a mountain, you got to climb it.
Well, Mozart could be, but that's why he's a dick.
And there is a level too. Like if Clooney had like come across that curveball, or
love you, Mozart.
Me, like I see somebody who's crazy fast, but I decide like you get that little thing in your brain, like I am not that fast, but maybe I can. And who knows if you'll ever get there, but you will get faster if you decide I am going to get that fast, and you spend 5 years trying to do it. And you'll suddenly get closer and closer, and it'll open up, or you'll maybe get a little better at hitting that curveball. It's just you hit this level where you're like, I got to work dang hard just to inch up little by little, a little better.
Yeah.
And who knows if you'll ever get to the peak of somebody who's just got that Jordan-like talent, but you can get better than where you were.
Did you?
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say, like, with the Jordan-like talents and stuff, but I'll go back to that. Go ahead, Damon.
Yeah, I was just going to say, like, just yesterday, I think it was yesterday, Albert Pujols hit his 700th home run in the major leagues. And so, like, it's things like that to me. It's the endurance as well as the accomplishment. You know, the fact that you stuck with it long enough at that level to that point to get to where you're one of only 4 people in the world who have ever done this type of accomplishment. And it's like there's nothing in the world that can replace that type of a feat. You know, like you can have billions of dollars, you could have whatever the case may be, you can have all kinds of various things, but to be able to accomplish something that took that kind of endurance and tenacity and consistency to get to a place where you're one of only 4 others in the world that has done this is just one of those things where it's like, man, it's just, you know, there's a lot of things that go into that. Luck being one of them, but
it's really weird because I know I bring it back to music a lot, and Mozart again. I was just reading something that was similarly like that, worded like that, about Mozart, Beethoven, and Bach, those 3. Mm-hmm. It said it's not that they just wrote one symphony or one great piece of work, it's that they wrote hundreds over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And each one kept getting better and better and better. They didn't just do one miracle. They did all these miracles that accumulated over a lifetime. And that's why they're giants. You know what I mean? But until you get that 700th home run, but he was probably pretty solid at his 400th, you know, as a legend.
Yeah, you're 400's enough to make the Hall of Fame easy.
Yeah.
Right.
The what's the total? What's 750? Is that where Aaron?
It's 755.
Yeah.
He did it in 21 years. I don't know if that'll ever get beat. Pujols is in his 21st year.
My gosh.
So.
Yeah. See, so it takes that time.
Aaron,
you know, it's like
this dude Judge who just hit 60. Has he got 61 yet?
He'll break the AL record if he gets it.
Yeah, he's got one more to beat Maris, but
Maris, yeah.
Then you got all those guys. I mean, he might be the first one who's not going to get like accused of crazy juicing, like Sammy Sosa and who else was it? Bonds and McGuire.
Yeah.
But Judge, how far into his career is he? I didn't even know the dude until I heard him hit 60.
I think he's only in it like 6 years, 7 years. He's got plenty of time.
Wow.
I think he has a chance to, you know, again, it's going to be luck because injuries happen, you know, all the things have to come together. So,
yeah. And then you can just hit slumps too. That's the bottom line of it. And then you start hitting stuff like Bonds hit, like people started walking Bonds all the time. Like, I wonder how many would have hit if they weren't walking them so much, you know. All these things come together in the same area. I mean, it is the same area. And we actually could probably do a lot of podcasts on it. You make it around a series, but between music, even poker, even sports, there's a level of technical skill, there's a level of mathematical intelligence skill, there's a level of dumb luck, you know, and it's all playing with reality. It's like they're almost all kind of games against reality. That's what all of our games are. Let's test out reality and what the world is and how far and how good we can do in it. But there was this book, Heather Hang and Brett Weinstein brought it up. I wish I knew it right off the top of my head. I've mentioned it a ton of times before, but I'm drawing a blank on it. But they mentioned that one of the main things that they found that kept people out of falling into crazy, wild ideologies was having some sort of extreme experience of having to get better at some sort of domain like this, where you have to fight reality. You have to have like a hands-on, embodied, physical meeting of reality inside of the goal that you're doing and trying to get better within it. And then some sort of level inside of it that there's a little bit of some things that are outside of your hands, like injuries or dumb luck in poker or something like that. Yeah. Damon and I talk a lot about lifting, which is the same realm too.
Yeah.
And
reality doesn't bat last when you're under a bar with heavy weight.
Yeah. You know,
that's reality right there.
This bench press is just a construct. Go up, 400-pound bench press. That's how it works.
So I was about to say, I just noticed only 30 seconds left on this video. I said, I just noticed there's only 30 seconds left on the video.
Oh yeah, let's see reality bat last right here.
I know. I'm kind of excited.
It's like Casey at the bat, the old poem, right?
I bet he's going to go all in with those quad nines.
It's almost like this bad beat waited to be in time when it could be filmed.
You cannot. You got to feel it too. You got to be the person who is. Right now, he is trying to control his heartbeat to not act overexcited and jump out of the chair.
Right.
One of the hard things to do in poker is when you have a huge hand. Like this is one of Mike Caro's poker tells, because it's usually the reverse. One of the big poker tells is if somebody's shaking and excited, that so many times through like the movies and stuff, they'll show that of like, he's scared, he's shivering. Shivering means you're crazy excited and your heart's beating and you're like, oh boy. And you got a huge hand.
I was in
you have to be the same no matter what. Just be the same person no matter what.
I I was in Wendover with Ryan once, and his hand was shaking, and he flipped over his hand, and he said full house. He thought he had aces over kings, and he just had two pair, aces and kings. But
yeah, that's
just
I've had that happen before.
He had that hand.
I had the right read. I had the right read on somebody that they were like coming out of their chair excited, and I folded, and it turned out they were such a novice they didn't realize that they didn't have the straight. And I was like, well, I read them right, but I was wrong because they didn't know that
they didn't even know what they had.
Yeah.
The thing I've noticed when I played with Chris, I went to Wendover one time. I don't know, this was a while back, but that was the time we went with my cousins. We went out there, and one thing that Chris was really good at was shit talking the table.
Yeah,
he's good at just throwing some zingers out there while he's playing, and I think that plays right into the game. Like you have to, goof around, and as you goof around, people it's almost like you got your hand over here while you're trying to do a magic trick. You want them to look at your hand over here. That's what Chris does. He uses his shit talking to.
I'll do that, and then also like you can get, if you like notice somebody's a good player, you can get on their good side, so they kind of won't ever come after you too.
Yeah.
Last time I was there, before my back gave out, I was chatting up the guy to my right. We were having good conversations.
The other thing that I do is just kind of in my mind, like I kind of think like I purposely kind of tell myself that whenever I'm bluffing, because what you'll actually find out on a lot of different tables that not a lot of people really dare to bluff. Bluffing really is pretty rare until you get to like higher level guys. So if you just dare to bluff, but in my mind, one of the things that I would do is I just say to myself, I want you to call me. Please catch me, catch me, catch me, catch me. And whatever that was like saying in my mind, that would help me stay cool and not give anything off and kind of give them, I think like they'd get like a gut reaction, like he wants a call. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And so like I'd have to kind of like trick my own brain to like, I couldn't just say, okay, give off this thing. It's just more like say to yourself, Chris, that you want them to call you. Please call me. Please call me. Yeah. Then I get to show the table I'm an idiot bluffer. Please call me. Please call me. Please call me. And then that would almost always like just end up working. There's so much stuff to learn and try and do over time, and you get it wrong 1,000 times, or you get shellacked 1,000,000 times, and then you just get better.
It's also a game where you can do that. Like you can do it over and over again and get really, really good at it and still get your ass handed to you.
Oh yeah, by a total rookie.
Exactly.
Well, one of the things that happened, that's why that one guy that James mentioned, Moneymaker, became so popular, because it was like, how did he get through? But one of the things that I found out is there's all sorts of stuff that like you can overthink yourself, because you can start being like, well, I know all the poker tells, right? I've read Mike Carroll's book. I've seen him in real life. And then you can start doing a thing where you play yourself and you say, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to give off one of those tells. But then you realize that person you're playing against doesn't know shit about the tells.
And they're not even watching. Yeah,
they're not even watching. So like
they're like, I got 5-2, and then they.
Or it's like if I assume this person read Mike Carroll's poker tells, they know that shaking means excited. And so if I try to play the game and I start shaking, and they're like, I saw in the movie The Maverick that seeing the shaking, it means they're scared, and they call, and they do the total wrong read. And so you play yourself by trying to do the it's kind of paper, scissors, rocks endlessly with that sort of deal. But I was gonna say, you cannot know what it's like to be almost your heart coming out of your chest because you're so excited that this is probably the best hand he's had in 10 years.
Oh yeah, but let's not forget how cool this guy's playing his queens. Like, how many times have you slow?
Yeah, this guy did a good job of acting. This guy did a better job of being nothing.
Well, he's got the nuts, and he knows it. He had the nuts on the.
Well, yeah, but how many times you had the nuts and you're hoping someone bets for you? How many times have you had the nuts and you want them to bet for you and it never happens?
It's hard.
This guy's loving this slow play. This guy loves it. This guy's slow playing it for him.
You have to have experience. You have to have experience of catching big hands with big money there, because you can. This is kind of one of the things that I draw back to Crime and Punishment in those books that Peterson's talking about. Is like sometimes you don't even know like what sort of control you have over your body. And like I could be fine. You can't know until you're in the moment of facing like you've got this table at your beck and you've got the big hand. They've got the money coming your way, and then all of a sudden you realize that your heart's just going off, and you're like, I got no control over that. The heart's just going off. I can't say to myself, stop it, heart, right now. And the only thing that will help you is having it happen a bunch of times.
Yeah. If you have to overcome the psychology, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's true of sports and even like performing live, like until you got to screw up live. A lot of like comedians will say you got to bomb to ever even start getting good.
Yeah.
And
you have to push. You have to bomb, but then you have to push through it.
Yeah,
you have to keep going. You have to not give up. The giving up is what kills it. But yeah,
you have to like make sure that your parents leave your concerts telling you how horrible it was for the first like 20 years because you decided to write the standard practice.
We'll have to talk about that.
I'm sure one of the things I always wondered, because Damon's played baseball and you played in high school, right?
Yeah.
And I always wondered, like, because I mean, I played it when I was a little kid, but I never got to bat when tons of eyes were on me and it was a big challenging situation. No, and I was like wondering, like those situations, like, oh my gosh, I don't know, it would be a whole different thing if all of a sudden everybody was watching.
Yeah. And the hardest thing about baseball when you're batting is if you're that guy, 2 outs, 2 on, you're down by a run, bottom of the 9th. That's a tough spot. And everybody's watching spot. Yeah.
When I see it on a national level, I always just go like, how do you? And then there's part of me that kind of knows from being a person who's gone and tried to perform and do stuff is that one of the things they're relying on is that this is the 9,000th time they batted this year, and so they're just trying to.
The odds are still the same. They're still shitty.
And so they're just saying, just do what you do. Just do what you do. It's just the same old moment. It's just the same old moment. And hopefully you had enough strokes, enough swings. But then that's why it's important over time that people who've had experience in the big show too, because they get more calm with it. And like all these sorts of things, like you can only ever get on top of it having experienced it. Experience matters bigger than saying to yourself that I could do good in that situation. I could do a great job if I flopped quad cleans. I was going to talk about who's that guy Phil who used to do the announcing, not Ivy. He became an announcer, and then a lot of people started getting really pissed with his announcing because what he would do is like he would announce a thing like this and he'd watch it happen and he'd start criticizing this guy. And one of the things that in your mind is that if you were this guy, very few people are getting out of this without losing all their chips. Nobody's getting out of this without losing all their chips.
No,
all of us. This guy in this spot loses all his chip. This guy in this spot wins. And so much of what poker is like when you have a losing hand, can you minimize your losses? When you have a winning hand, can you maximize your wins? And so much of what he's trying to do is maximize the best hand he's seen in a while. It's so hard.
You won't see that hand for a while.
I just want to watch his reaction. I think if I remember, he gets pretty bad.
What was his name? But that guy, Phil, he used to get a lot of criticism because he would watch a situation like this and he would say, oh, he should be folding. He should be folding. He should be folding. And like whenever he was seeing the cards, he was suddenly acting like everybody else could see the cards too. And after a while, people are like, take this guy off the air. He doesn't know what he's talking about. He's never talking about what it might actually be like in that situation.
Yeah, that's why that's poker. You don't see cards.
Yeah.
But your own in the community.
Look at that. Oh my gosh. He
threw it all in.
Hold on. I might have to hear that.
Turn the volume up on this. I got to
look at this. You can see the
you can see where all in. Oh
you can see where the most watches were, and nobody's even watched it down here. Everybody fast forwards to the end. There's just like tons of watches down at the end right here. Let's see.
One thing we know for sure, just in case he checks it, he is going to get a wager.
Who's that announcer? He died. Sexton.
Yeah.
He's great.
I don't believe I've ever seen this before.
No, me either. This is a first for me. 10 years of cards.
Well, he's moved all in and quickly called, and then Roe will turn up his hand first. 4-9 against 4.
Look at the faces going on there.
Toby Lewis. Look at Timoshenko. Look at Timoshenko.
You cannot imagine. You cannot imagine the swing of emotions that guy just went through right there.
That's crazy. I'm gonna mute for a second.
He's gonna go home and think about this for about 7 weeks.
No, he remembers this. He remembers this right now.
Yeah.
Like if we talk to this guy right now, he remembers this good.
That guy's right now Matt Damon walking into the room knowing how he lost everything.
Certainly.
You're right. I do not have
How many nightmares do you think that guy had for me? It's like
a million.
Probably. Hey, so I did send you a link to the whole playlist of just the 4. So tell me if that came through. I got it really quick.
So one of the things that's funny about that, why that Mark Twain quote of learning how to play two pairs is valuable and is costly to college education is, if you have a little bit of time in poker, you think two pairs really, really good.
It's not.
and it is pretty good in the sense of like, yeah, a lot of times you can be pretty sure that's good, but you come out firing like, I got the two pair, oh boy.
And someone has trips,
until you get shellacked. And then after time, you get older and you start playing it more cautiously. But at the same time too, sometimes you should just play it as balls out as because it is pretty good. But until you've been kicked in the nuts with it a bunch of times, you don't really understand that it's not that good. But then you realize if you play enough poker that it's hard enough just to get two pair. It's a tough game. But
it is, and it's funny because you can have all the AI and all the mathematics, but you can still win. You can still win big pots with like a 7-3 offsuit. It's just But sometimes it takes a lot of balls to play that. It's like, okay, I've got a 7-3 offsuit here. I'm small stacked. Do I just push all in with my 7-3 offsuit?
Yeah, tournament's different. Yeah.
And then you don't, and then you see the turn, or not the turn, the flop, and the flop has 2 7s in it, and you're like, duh, I should have played it. That just happens so much in poker, where you just think about it, and you're like, why didn't I play my 5-2?
I got to a point of trying to make sure that I tried to forget what I just folded, even if it was a limp or something like that. Just don't even care. Don't even put. You folded it. You're done. It's gone.
Just let it go, even though you just got the nuts from it. But just let it go.
So this is Dumas's James Dumas. James Dumas put on a quartet at the University of Utah.
Oh wow!
And
was he the composer? Or?
Yeah, he's the composer. I'm going to show some of the music here in a second, but. Yeah, he got some donors to help put it on, alumni from there, and he let's see. I don't know.
Hey, go back. Is that Matt?
Yep.
Man, I haven't seen him for years. Last time I saw him, I picked up a DNA test from his house.
Oh yeah, he worked for Ancestry or something like that.
Yeah.
Did you see that Ancestry got bought up by BlackRock?
Really? No.
Yeah. So
Doesn't surprise me.
Now they own your DNA.
Jeez.
Let's see here. I did mine through, what was the other one? The
23andMe or
23andMe. 23andMe. Yeah. So that's Dumas's live recording. He had a pretty good crowd.
I'm proud of Dumas. He's not wearing a mask.
Yeah. What the heck? I'm gonna ask him about.
Oh, you're
I
on
didn't
mute.
Notice that.
You're on mute.
I am.
James is talking, but he's on mute.
James, you're on mute.
Click mute.
That video I don't think will play. I've removed them and I've replaced them with different videos with the sheet music behind it.
Yeah, but that wasn't it. I was just showing the pictures of it. And that was just pictures from Facebook.
Gosh.
But why were they all in masks, man? I didn't even realize that. Man, that's how.
So the violist husband just beat pancreatic cancer, and they're also in their 70s, and so they asked if everyone would wear masks if they were close or on stage.
String quartet in G major.
This is the live recording.
You wrote this, James?
I did.
Woo. Good work.
You should start fourth movement. That's the best.
The fourth one?
Yeah, it's the most fun one anyway.
Well, I'm gonna have time to play all of it, but we'll just listen for a minute. I can't listen to James's music because we always have this thing of saying James's name and stuff when we read his songs. So I'm always the James Dumas, James. I think an AI could do better.
What do you think about, James, when you're listening to this music you've written? Like, what types of thoughts flow?
Well, so I explained it in my program pretty well. So I explained in my program that my approach to music is a purely musical sense. So all 4 movements are traditional forms that I learned over the course of my years. The last movement's a sonata. So a sonata is very form driven in that you have a theme and you use that theme and you take it through all these various stages to the end. I mean, so it's very thematic. Usually what I'm thinking about when I write a theme is how can I write a really awesome theme? And then I just take that theme and I can apply it to all kinds of techniques. But like I said in my program, I said the best part about the way I write, thinking of forms and stuff, is it lets the listener form a story of however they want. And in reality, sonata form is the hero story in musical setting. You have a theme, that theme changes, and so it changes keys, but it changes its personality. And then the middle section that we call the development, it's where that theme goes through all kinds of different transitions to return home to the main theme, but somehow he stays the same. So it really is, in my opinion, sonata form represents sort of a musical hero tale. You know what I mean? Just using musical elements. Same with any other form that I use. Rondo is kind of the same, interchanging melodies or, different themes back and forth, competing with each other type stuff. So it's just that. He's under here.
Cool.
But go ahead and listen to it on your free time, Damon, and check out my page. It's like
I'll link it at the bottom. I'll link it at the bottom of this. So if you guys looked at any of these Dall E images, like the AI creating paintings, there's gonna be like a Dall E for music pretty soon. These paintings and images, they get pretty unreal. Like not just unreal, like it's pretty wild because
this is an AI
paintings, yeah. And
oh my gosh.
We can even do it live in real time if you want to do it. The problem is, like, unless you have like a really good computer chip, there's only like a certain level you can do. But even that level, you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe how crazy this is. They already had an AI generated image from Dall E win like an art competition. Who knows if it's going to get there for music or something like that. Look, we can do it live. Dall E Mini. This one's not the most powerful because it's just quick on the internet. But what's the concept? We can do a name some famous figure. Maybe they'll do Stu Ungar. Is it Ungar, Stu Ungar,
yeah.
And you can do it in like the style of Dall E. Picasso.
Yeah.
Well, let's see what happens. I like it when because James is pretty esoteric. He's got a lot of notes coming at you, but I like it when there's especially like a note that a line you can sing back in your head like that fourth.
Do you guys remember?
That's good.
Do you guys remember Josh and the Dream Killers?
Yeah, Emily, James's wife. James' wife just wrote me asking if we've told the story of Corner and Twain and Win yet.
Yes.
Tell the story of Corner and Twain and Win.
You're going to tell the story of Corner of Twain and Win now?
No, I don't know if we should or shouldn't.
You should. Yeah, you can. No, but before that, though.
That was a song, right?
Yeah, it was. No.
And a story.
Damon. Go to YouTube and just look up Josh and the Dream Killer Left. So no, I have put all of our stuff on Chris. I don't know if you checked it out. Like Blue Shift's online.
Look at this. Instead of doing it in the style of Picasso, it mixed Picasso's face with Stu Ungar's face.
Yeah, see, I don't know about this. I don't know about this stuff.
It only gets better because like if people put in the right framings of stuff, because you can do like it might be better to like to put it with impressionism or something like that. And
yeah, probably.
But it usually does like a Picasso style thing. If you do Picasso, it's just you need to just set the parameters different, and it will finally pump out. You can get online and people are running all sorts of crazy stuff, these crazy images. And if your computer has a better card, you can get even crazier and wild and even make videos out of it that would melt your brain. The Corner of Twain and Win. So this might be towards the end of our stay in Vegas. So
Corner of Twain and Win was the first encounter, the one I lost all the money to and got lucky the next day. But that was the one where I walked home crying over the bridge and stuff. So the Corner of Twain and Win is just the song that resulted from my stupidity.
So the Corner of Twain and Win was where James and I were staying for a while in Vegas, which is basically walking distance to the Rio. It's an apartment walking like it's a distance of from the Rio.
Half a mile of the most dangerous strip of Vegas.
Yeah. And even Josh and the Dream Killer, which was the name of our band, that was a riff on Twain and Win too, because Mark Twain used a what
and then Josh.
Yeah,
Josh was one of his pen names.
His pen name was Josh when he put it in like newspapers. And then the Dream Killer was Steve Wynn, the owner of the Wynn Hotels. He had put his hand through a Picasso painting. He put his whole fist through a Picasso painting
called the Dream.
Called the Dream. And so we called Wynn the Dream Killer. So it was Josh and the Dream Killer.
And by the way, it must be noted that this name evolved after probably 3 days of trying to think of a name. This is what we came up with. Here's an example of overthinking. You know, it's like sometimes I thought, like, how lucky did the Cars get? They just want to be the Cars? Yeah, we're the Cars, okay.
Yeah, Cars. It took forever to try to find a name that wasn't already a taken name. Yeah, so it was just you had to go and go and go, and you had to find something so esoteric to find something that just wasn't there. Most bands that I know of, that if they just have some kind of simple name, what they're doing is they're just choosing a name that somebody already has copyrighted, and if they get big enough, it will become a fight.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, my band, the Swinging Lights, we never even looked at it that hard. I'm sure that there's some other band called the Swinging Lights, and if we ever got big enough, we'd have to have some. Like the TV show Arrested Development had to go through a major label.
Dude, I bet you could take the Dixie Chicks back.
Dude, I remember I still remember watching
the Dixie Dudes.
Josh and the Dream Killer at the bars changed now, but I think back then it was called Five Monkeys.
Yeah,
it's like the Ice House.
And you guys, and you guys tried to cover 311. I think you tried to do Amber, and then the drums messed up, I think. I remember
that's what the whole entire fight was about. Yeah,
because Ryan was drumming, so the band fell apart. The band fell apart because of that.
We didn't ever have look. There's impressionism, Homer Simpson. Yeah, so that thing all happened. We were down in Vegas, and I was working, and James was playing poker. And one night we were up late playing poker. And we played those games where James would say, okay, if you lose this one, you got to go out and play poker with me now. And it'd be like a Tuesday night at 10. Like, James, I can't go play poker right now. I got to work tomorrow. And that's one of the nice things about Vegas. Like, you're sitting here in Utah and you're like on a Friday night and like, what the heck do we go do? It's nice to be in a place where one of those options is I could just go up the street and play poker. Mm-hmm. That's really nice. I wish we had that around here. But
you can go up the street 120 miles and play poker.
Yeah, and that's what I've done a bunch of times. So if you go there, it's always got to be this great big trip, and you got to put in 8 hours. Where in Vegas, you can really game the tables if you know that you can get up and walk. And I can do an hour and a half, or I can do 4 hours, and I can walk at any moment. Or even if I just want to go watch NFL football, I can sit there and watch an NFL football. I can even be more patient because I'm actually kind of watching the game, so I can be patient for better hands and just chip up money off of these knuckleheads around me.
I told you I'm a friend of I told you that I was getting pretty nice with a good poker player next to me last time. He was telling me that he plays in a couple of games around town. He can't tell me about. I can never. You'd have to have in upon in. But there are actual poker halls that are, I guess, so protected now.
No, there is. I actually got in and started playing with some dudes who were executives for the Utah Jazz. And I actually got into it because at Wendover, I won some hand off of some technicality that actually got chopped. By the river, it got chopped. But the guy didn't realize it was chopped because I had the better hand until it chopped. And he folded his hand. And they said, oh, you folded your hand, you get your money back. And I said, no, it's a chop, just give him his money, And I didn't go off of the technicality that he technically folded. And the guy was like, that's so cool that he invited me to these local games. That's awesome. I started going to these local games, but then it wasn't awesome because if you don't have a dealer there and people are just sitting there dealing so slow, passing the deal around the table, it just becomes a nightmare.
Do you know what? You know how you said that about Flip earlier? Like, Flip's a good poker player, but then that happened. So in our home games, this is what Flip used to do. This is funny. So our home games, Flip would lose epically somehow and be like, "Oh, I'm so pissed." And then I remember Matt Wharton would be like, "Hey, Flip, why don't you deal and we'll tip you, and then you can get back in the game." And so for an hour, we had a dealer in Flip, so none of us had to keep dealing. And then, eventually he'd have $10 in tip money. Be like, "Okay, I'm buying back in."
We got pretty good at that though, because each of us were kind of fast enough to deal around the table. But I'd go to these other games and they'd sit and talk between them. I'd be like, "Man, if I go and play with you guys for a night, what is it? 15 hands? Come on, I don't want to go do it, And
so anyway, the last thing you said was I was trying to get you to go out and play with me.
You're trying to get me to go out and play with you, and we played a game that if I lost, I had to go play with you. I think I won that one. Every single time we've mentioned tonight have been times I've won, and James had to do some sort of thing for it. But we played back and forth a million times. James won a bunch of times. I went, look, here's Doyle Brunson and President.
Oh my gosh! Look at the one on the top. Look at the one on the top right. What is that?
Look at this one. So far, these are you have to get a higher.
You'd have to do Stu Ungar cubism.
These lower ones, they don't do very good at faces. But if you get like a higher one that takes a higher chip, a fancier chip, they'll do full faces better. But
of course, the computer can't recognize faces. It's full autistic.
Yeah, well, that's basically what it is. Chris Farley. Just put some random thing in there like
Chris Farley.
Because you do all sorts of stuff. Like here's Chris Farley playing hopscotch, and if you have like a fancy one, you can really get images of like Chris Farley playing hopscotch. Anyway, so James lost that one and said, and I remember that night we'd been talking really hard about these same sorts of concepts about Sklansky and power poker from Doyle Brunson and those books and all that sorts of stuff. And we got to the end of it, and James had been drinking while we were playing. And then after the end of it, I'm telling you, it was like midnight. It was like midnight, and I'm like, I got to go to bed, man. I got to work in the morning. And James was like, I'm going to play poker. He's like, what? And he was
the cab just pulled up.
He was already drunk and all this stuff. And he called like a cab and all that stuff. I'm like, are you kidding me, dude? I'm like, yeah, I'm going right now. Like, all right, dude. And he takes off, right?
Was this when you guys lived there, or you were just there?
We lived there. We lived there.
I know you guys vacation there sometimes.
We lived on the corner of Twain and Wynn.
Yeah. This is like mid-September 2007. I had moved there maybe a month at this point, and I was about to go out and do something dumb. I didn't realize I was going to get super lucky the next weekend. But yeah.
Anyway, he leaves.
That's awesome.
He leaves, and I just say, "All right, I'm going to bed, whatever," And so maybe a couple hours pass by because I'm asleep. I don't really know how long it's been. And I just hear this like crying outside the window. Now, here's the thing to think about Las Vegas. That wasn't very rare.
2 weeks prior, we were laughing at a guy doing it. We had his guitar on the porch.
It wasn't it wasn't rare at all to hear somebody crying out in the street because we were close enough to the Rio. And let's see here. Where's Twain? I'm going to show right where we were. Anyway, I hear this crying out in the street. This, I'm like, oh, great. There's another one. Then slowly after a while, I realized that the crying's getting closer. And then after a minute, I realized the crying's coming up the stairs. They go, oh crap, that's Jesus.
Turn it on.
Let's see.
Satellite.
Twain and Wynn. Let me just show it. Here's the Rio. Here's the Palms. Twain is right here. Where's Wynn? Wynn is. It's got to be just like right. It's a smaller street here.
Well, you're right there.
Wynn. There's Wynn. There's Wynn and Twain, and here's the Rio. Right. So James, I don't know if you played the Rio that night, but
no, I played the Bellagio. I played the Bellagio. I walked home from the Bellagio. I walked over the bridge and everything, man. So depressed, like freaking out.
Here's Twain and Wynn, and here's the Rio, right? And that's where we were staying. That's what we ended up naming the band and all that stuff in the name of the song. And we could, why I said, like, people would walk this street crying out of the Rio all the time. You just hear them crying out on the road. And
they had no shirt on, right?
Yeah,
shirtless.
Yeah, exactly. So James comes in and he like bursts in the front door. I was just sleeping on the couch because I was in the middle of divorce. He just burst through the front door, and I just remember this big dramatic thing of him just like going, whoa, and then like slams his head against the wall, and he's like, just starts stuff. And I was like, oh man, I'm just gonna pretend like I'm asleep. He just like keeps going and going. He's crying. And then, after a bit, he finally goes, Chris. Like, yeah, James, I lost all my money. And I was like, I know, James. And, so after a while, we sit there, and after a while we get talking, and I remember just after a little bit, it's like 4 a.m. or something. He goes, I wish I could go play poker right now.
Well, and the other thing, I was going to be screwed if I didn't get lucky like I did, because I had paid for 5 months rent up front.
What game did you play that night? What did you do that night?
It was a it was a video game. It was a video poker tournament that my mom had accidentally put me in by playing on she had played on my player's card. And so I was entered into it. And first place was 10,000, second place was 5,000. And my second hand, I got a royal flush. And I was like, oh, cool. Maybe that'll put me in the running. And then when they were announcing like third place and it wasn't me, they said second place, James Dumas. I was like, oh, I just won $5,000. And even when I tell Emily that story, she's like, that's one of those stories. It's so weird. If I saw that in a movie, I'm like, the writer just made that bullshit up. I'm like, no, but that really happened.
There was a lot about that happened all the time too. Yeah,
like the writer's just writing that to be convenient. No, that's like me needing a Yahtzee to save my life and having all 5 dice and rolling a Yahtzee with a gun to my head.
This is the deal. This is why James would do that and why it wouldn't happen. He'd go and play those things, but at the same time is that if he played around the tables that we're used to playing 1, 2, 2, 5, you could win 200, 300 a day. And then once in a while, because the way poker swings, because it's going to be like that chart that we showed over time. There's going to be ups and downs, just like playing the stock market. And so maybe one day you'd take $100 loss, another day $200 win, $300 loss. And then James kind of realized over time that at that rate, no matter how well he played, it's just going to have a certain trajectory, right? So you'd be like, no matter how great I play at this 1, 2, 2, 5 level, I'm going to end up at the most I could make in a year is like 50,000, 60,000 if I play these amount of hours, right? And he was on that track and doing fine doing that. And then he'd always be like, he'd get to a moment like he'd take a hit one day where it was just like another $100 hit, but he was also drinking a lot of the time. And he'd take like $100 hit and be like, I'm sick of this. Like yesterday, I just won $400, and today I take $100. And I was like, if I won 400 every day, it would be fine, and I'd make $100,000 a year. But no, I took a $100 hit today, and so then he'd get mad, and he'd say, "I'm going to the 2050 table," and then he just all of a sudden like go walk over to this table where they're betting, and that's fine. He could play that table, but one of the tricks is with poker is you have to have a bankroll because any given time you could lose what you have in front of you, but you buy back in. And you go back up. So there's this going on, but you got to be playing with the amount of money that you can handle.
Yeah,
you can't put all $10,000 down.
I mean, what's the standard? $100 buy-ins.
Yeah. So if you have $100,000, you can put $10,000 down. You might take a 10,000 hit, but then the next day you'll take a 15,000 gain, and that's just how it goes. But James had the money to do it with $200, $300 a day, but he didn't have the money to put it all down on one buy-in. And then there's also these pros. There's these pros in Vegas at those higher tables who were gaming the tables together. They join in together and they kind of zero in on one person type stuff. Yeah,
they're polluters for sure.
They told me personally. I was playing a higher stake game, and they were like, "It's not that you're not good; it's that you'll never win because we're playing 3-on-3."
So like they go into this thing where like if we have an all-in, James has a good hand, he's going all in, but they're going to have 3 people go all the way to the river with him, and that just lowers the chances of how good his hand is. Maybe that'll work out in his favor that he'll get 4 up on one of them, but it also lowers the percentage that hand's going to win. But those guys all wouldn't be there if they weren't colluding together. That they say whoever wins this hand, we're going to share this money.
That's one thing. That's one thing they don't really capture in Vegas, right? Like they'll come after you if you're counting cards at blackjack tables, but they don't really have a way to know or.
Especially with those guys.
So I mean, colluding against the law down there, but it's really hard for them to catch you.
You got a 9-table game.
Mm-hmm.
James and I would do it, but we wouldn't do it to win. We would do it to stay out of each other's way. Like we would tell each other if we had a good hand or not. And we had this coded language. Like we'd
like you'd rub your eyebrow or something.
No, because that'd be too obvious. We just talk to each other like we were always talking to each other, and we'd say like we'd call bullets or aces. And so that's bullets over butterfly. Bullets over we talk about smashing pumpkins. Smashing pumpkins or bullets over butterfly wings. And one of us would start talking about smashing.
Brokeback Mountain became too obvious to be pocket kings.
Yeah, Brokeback Mountain was pocket kings and queens. I don't know what we call that, but
dude.
So we'd just start talking about something, and we'd know, and we only had it for like the really strong hands, and so that we knew if the other person had really strong hands, we just say, okay, I might have like ace jack, but I'm just going to get out of this hand.
Ryan, we start talking about Ryan if we had pocket eights because his hand he always seemed to lose pocket eights. And you always go all in with them too, and always lose.
But we just use it to not be in the same hand when one of us had a strong hand.
Yeah, you don't want to take it.
Yeah.
But there's players
Of course,
that
there was that one
do
night. There was that one night at the Mirage. Now that was worse than the corner of Twain to win. Months after the corner of Twain to win, when I was drinking again and used that power to lie to you, and then you also used the
James gamed me, and I knew he was lying, and so I flipped his cards over on the table. And I got in trouble and kicked off the table for it. And James got mad, like, why did you look at it? But I told James that I had pocket jacks. And then he told me, I've got pocket queens. I'm like, no, you don't. He's like, yes, I do. No, you do not. Jesus. And then he bluffs the whole table and bluffs me out of the hand. I go, no, I know you didn't have the queens. And then I just turned them over and he didn't have the queens.
Although I wasn't the only one drunk that night. Chris had discovered gin and tonics that night. That was gin and tonic night for Chris Hanna.
Yeah, I remember I walked away from the table and I was all pissed, and like some kid talked to me. He's like, man, I can't get a cab. And it was just this young kid. I was like, here's $100, kid. I just kept like walking. I was just all pissed. I was like whatever. But it got wild down there sometimes, but I miss it.
Well,
but
there's times that I miss it, but like, you know, that one part, like that was like anytime we were at the Strip, it was weird too. Like you would drop me off at the Bellagio before. I was mainly the only guy ever going to the Strip during the week. Remember how we always go to the Red Rock? Me and you would go to the Red Rock on our
I like to play off Strip because on the Strip people got too wild.
They got too wild. Like that's where I was like, I remember I was playing that time that you were telling I was on the phone with you and I took that $2,000 swing and then won $1,000. I was playing on a 15-30 limit table with a bunch of lawyers from Los Angeles that were just there to drink and play at their low stake is 15-30. You know what I mean? They don't want to play the lower stakes than that because they're lawyers. They want to have some fun with it, but they're not going to worry about losing $5,000. And so they're just drinking and playing.
Yeah.
And Wendover's a lot like that on the weekends now too. There's always just people out there for fun. And
anyway,
play.
Last time I went to Wendover.
No, go ahead.
Last time I went to Wendover, I sat on the cash table, and it's like nowadays you can't really even hang in the cash games unless you buy a big stack to start with, just because you'll just get stacked out. That's just the way they play now. It's like,
I used to like to go to a place where you could buy in low and then just go ahead and go all in, like just wait for a good thing and just go ahead and go all in whenever you saw something.
But they play so aggressively. It's just if you're not big stacked, you're going to get aggressed out of it.
Well, so the 2007 World Series of Poker, I sat down at a 2-5 no limit table, and a guy sat down and said, "I'll buy him for $20,000." And everyone at the table was like, "What?" And the dealer said, "This year there's a no cap limit on cash games." So a guy sat down at a 2-5 no limit game where I only bought him for $300 with $20,000 in cash. And how do you think he played? He was all in every hand.
He just bully you the whole time.
Yeah. And that, I mean, is that like the equivalent of shooting threes the whole time? I don't know.
But that kind of is. I mean, it takes the fun out of it, but if you want to make money, you can make money off of it.
Well, you just gotta wait.
You can just sit there and wait. You can just sit there and wait for
You'll double up.
You just sit there and wait for a major hand, and then just take them.
But you have to first take. So you're gonna have to call a couple of.
You have to have a perfect hand.
Kings.
Yeah.
Well, you're gonna want definitely the pocket aces or kings probably, but you're gonna have to take those risks with the ace jack suited. You got this bully with 20,000 over there. You just bought it for 300, and he's blowing all in every hand. And you look down at ace jack suited. That's your one moment to gamble against that jerk. But also in my head, I'm like, he's gonna win because I always lose these.
He's gonna have a 5-2, and he's gonna beat me.
He's gonna get that 2 on the river.
Yeah.
Yeah, like everybody else is gonna double up through him, but then he's gonna catch it against me.
And then I buy back in for 300.
But that's the magical thinking. That's the magical thinking you start doing. Like, really, you should just be thinking like the AI person who says, I got the odds and he's going to give me the money. So, of course, I have the dumb luck, but he's going to.
That's not even a fun game.
It's not fun. If you're going to have fun and just and
I mean, it must have.
And play the chess game, it's not.
I'll tell you what must have been fun. What must have been fun is being David Skolansky, Stu Ungar, all of these guys before it was popular and everybody at the table except them sucked. That must have been really fun.
Yeah,
they're
But Stu Ungar's and Doyle Brunson's game was to be the first guys to bully tables like that.
Yeah.
That's what their game was. You know?
Well, that was their game, but they did it by knowing they were playing every hand. So it's one thing to the opponent to keep playing every hand, and you as the professional to kind of dick around with them when you know they're doing stupid things. That you don't have to be a great player to have $20,000 and sit down and just go all in on it. Wendover doesn't have that. This was a World Series of Poker thing anyway. If I was sat down and went over to 2-5 table and someone bought it for $20,000, I'd be like, you guys got to be kidding.
Yeah, it's well. There's that legend of Stu Ungar that he used to bully and win tables so hard that there's that time that he couldn't make it back to the World Series.
He was passed out because he was ODing on cocaine.
He was ODing and then just chipping his chips out, just letting them chip out. He took third in the whole tournament. Yeah. Oh man, he was so crazy freaking good. I'm show
but
some
the thing
of my winnings.
With Stu Ungar, I have to wonder about certain things. I would have to wager his cocaine addiction was what enabled him to be that crazy monstrosity, right? Like they say that Steven Tyler used to put drugs in his thing so he would be more crazy on stage, like the drug. So would Stu Ungar have been that crazy player sober? I highly doubt it. You know what I mean? It's like
probably, yeah. It's one of those things of like did they get there?
What kind of balls did he have? He probably had no fear of losing. You know what I mean? One of my problems when I play poker is I really don't like losing, and I don't like losing money. So I got these two things, you know what I mean? But I really don't just like losing. And what you were saying earlier about poker, someone can just sit down at a table and just beat the crap out of you with one bad hand. And it's like one of those skills where it's like, if you can sit there and no, I really am a good poker player. I promise. It's like, yeah, but you lost your money. But I swear I'm good. It's no, you lost your money.
I've been on a winning streak. Yeah, I mean, I haven't lost in a couple years every time I go and play.
How much was that one? Hold on, go back to that one. What was that?
I got a huge amount playing in Vegas. I can't remember what it was, but like, yeah, these are one of these is 100 chip stacks. Yeah.
You've got a 30 stack going on.
I'm up $300. I'm up $220 on poker. I won 300 last year, lost 80 last time I went. I haven't been out for a minute. I haven't lost in a couple years, and usually go and I play like I don't play that often. I play like once every couple months. When I went with you and Flip, that's $300 that I said I won. That was that night when me and you and Flip went.
But it's only dumb luck. Like I don't like fake myself out and say I will win every single time, you know, now. But it's just I've had like that streak for a while that I just every time I've probably played 15 times in the past 2 years, and I've had winning streaks at them. But
did you play craps ever?
No, I've never played anything outside of poker.
Yeah,
Chris is smart.
I'll play craps. Do you know that craps in the whole, I guess, genre or in all of gambling against the house, craps is the only game where you have one.
I've heard from James. James has explained it to me, but I've never
one time where you actually have the odds. You have the over odds on the house. And that's the first roll on a craps game.
First roll craps. Then even then, if you play just straight by the book craps, there's certain strategies. It's
can beat the house.
It's like playing poker over the long run, though. You're going to have a lot of swings.
You're going to lose.
You know what I mean? And so, and then you also
you got to walk when you're up. Yeah.
Well, to play craps straight involves growing your money on your numbers. Right. Mm-hmm. And that's like people get bored of that. That's why they start betting all the hard ways and all the snake eyes and stuff that are these insane odds to hit. It's way more fun. Yeah. Horrible odds. To play crap straightforward.
I feel like
a slow roll.
I feel like low stakes poker games I can beat if I'm there long enough. And part of what I factor into that is part of winning might be that I take a stack hit at the beginning, because sometimes I usually kind of go in with the idea at first of maybe I'll make these people at the table think I'm an idiot, you know. And
talking about Maverick technique. Jeez, no, I'm just kidding.
Well, but I'll do it just like by putting stuff up. But then sometimes that works in my favor, that I make just really stupid bluffs, and they work. And I go, well, I guess tonight then nobody's gonna think I'm an idiot because it worked too soon. Does that make sense? Because that bluff, I was putting those bluffs in to get called, and I didn't get called, and now I'm up. And so I'll just go ahead and just keep rolling. But sometimes really early, I kind of go into like saying, I want them to catch me being an idiot here and there, and then tighten up and
just don't play those limit games, those Omaha limit games.
I don't. James used to only play that stuff, man. That was James's bread and butter at first. Well, I got to use the restroom. But you talk about.
I still respect a good limit game.
Yeah,
it's just a different world.
Yeah,
in
Omaha limits, man. Every time I played Omaha limits, I get my ass crushed.
That's because Omaha is a tricky game because it gives you 4 cards and you can make any really good pair out of those 4 cards usually. So you think, well, you can only use 2 of them, but you get these 4 cards.
Use 2 of them. Yeah,
and you have to use 2 of them. But if you have, ace, if you have ace 9, 7, 6, and the 7-6 suited, you'll convince yourself, well, that's a good hand in poker, depending on the odds. But you're up against. Anytime I've had a low end flush in Omaha, someone always has a better one. It's, you know what I mean? It happens in Texas Hold'em for sure, but it's like almost a guarantee. If you have 7-6 suited and you hit the flush in Omaha, someone's got way better than 7-6 suited. They got dealt 4 cards.
I know. What tricks people, I think, in Omaha is that they don't realize they can't play 3 of their cards in the hole. They can only play 2, and they have to play 2. So they also can't just have 1 of their cards. They can't just one with 4 of the communities. They can't do that.
You have to have pocket aces. You have to have pocket aces to get a straight that has 2, 3, 4, 5 on the board, or pocket 6s. You know what I mean? Because then both of those play. But again, though, whenever I played Omaha, I don't like to play just Omaha high straight. I like high-low split. I've always liked the high-low split option. Because then you get more creative starting hands, like ace 2, 3, 4 suited is a really good starting hand in Omaha high-low split.
High-low. I think the nuts on high-low is the wheel, right? Like anytime you get the wheel, that's both on high-low.
I believe so.
High and the low. Yeah.
So it's like it's crazy. I really used to like to play. What is it? It was at the when we lived in Vegas, the Treasure Island. Dang it, is it Treasure Island? Is the name of the hotel next to the Mirage? There was a guy there who started a mix game, and we would play Pineapple, Crazy Pineapple, Texas Hold'em, Omaha, Stud, and we'd play around 10 hands of each, 9 hands of each.
Wow. He got the table to do that? He must have had to figure it out with the table, because
it was a group
of
people
that
met there. Well, it was a mixed game that met there they met specifically there every Thursday.
Orleans?
Oh. No, the mixed game I used to play at Treasure Island.
The only place I knew of that really got into wild games like that was the Orleans when I was down there. And they play whole tournaments of...
It was one guy.
I hated that stuff, though.
I love it.
That's another reason why I didn't like going playing with those jazz execs, because like the first thing they'd start doing is like, let's start playing Omaha high-low. Oh, let's start playing Raz or something. No.
Well, every time I play Raz, I get good hands, but just not for Raz.
But I like Chinese poker amongst friends, but that's just usually because we're just sitting around BSing with some cigars.
So Crazy Pineapple is the one where you have to kill a card ahead of the flop, and then regular Pineapple you kill it after the flop.
I think Crazy's after the flop.
Crazy's after, and then regular Pineapple's before. Okay, those are some tricky games.
Those are, man.
Yeah, I don't like them. I'm maybe some what do you call it? The 7-card studs. Some fun to do because you can actually feel like you can put some skill
Chris,
into it.
I'm a poker purist. Yeah. I should make fun of people for being a purist of anything.
That's all they ever played before Omaha, or not Omaha. I'm sorry, Hold'em.
Hold'em
was Stud.
Stud was popular. I mean, it's weird because Hold'em came around, and it's like one of those things that it just evolved somehow in the 19th century.
Hold'em just seems perfect to me as far as like keeping the game fast, keeping new hands coming. And
I mean, think about
it. It has enough level of there's still you got to.
You're sharing cards.
Still a chess game.
You're sharing cards, Where Stud, it's all your own stuff.
But if you're that's where Stu Ungar would really dominate, because he is kind of like playing Go Fish or something. Like you calculate real fast in your head what everybody else out there is showing and can talk.
Well, I mean, with Stu Ungar, it's funny because it's like I like to think of like Stu Ungar. He's like Mozart coming down and like doing techno music, right? Like he played gin rummy. He knew how to read your hand when you had all like 14 cards in your hand. So him reading 2, it's like what?
Because he could tell from what you're picking up and what you're putting down.
Exactly.
So he kept track of it in his head and all that.
So a lot of people don't know that Stu Ungar is real. He may be the best poker player ever, but people in the card gaming world regard him as the Mozart of gin rummy.
Man, I just recently rewatched that 21 movie with Kevin Spacey and all that stuff.
Is it horrible?
It's such a bad movie. It's such an interesting thing. Yeah, because it comes from like some real MIT team that really did go and game Vegas, but then the way they try to modernize it for the time and make it seem all
listening, just muting,
make it seem all cool is just frustrating and annoying. And beyond that, like the movie's set, the stuff happened in like the 70s or 80s or something like that, and it's all set in the Planet Hollywood. The Planet Hollywood only came around in 2005 or something like that. But it gets hard after you live in Vegas. It gets hard to watch Vegas movies and not just get distracted by geography and them being in the wrong place that they say they are, and being inside of the Planet Hollywood and taking a right-hand turn and ending up in the Mirage. And you're like, what just happened there?
They're not even next to each other.
Yeah, it doesn't even make sense. But they had all this stuff about the card counting. And that's another movie, because we used to rip on it in other stuff, where the main guy, Jim Sturgis, his American accent is real bad. He's a British guy. You can totally tell, like, oh, blackjack, I just hit blackjack. And Kevin Spacey is in it. But it's an interesting thing from the real MIT. But that's another movie that talks about this exact same stuff, because there's a whole part in that movie where Lawrence Fishburne is the old school security guy who could old school catch old school styles of colluding at tables, and the new IT security team's not good enough to catch this stuff. It's so funny, like how many movies kind of go against the AI'd out future, and the story of the movie is like, nah, real gut talent is what's going to actually win out in the end, not this stupid AI future. It's even happening in the current karate thing. Was it the Cobra Kai? They're remimicking the Rocky Balboa thing of the stuff,
special powers.
Was that the way you used to say it? Winner, winner, chicken dinner.
Yeah, that's the thing that didn't make any sense. Yeah, but
the way he said that was his horrible accent.
The winner, chicken dinner.
The way he said it, because it was horrible accent.
No, but I mean, we've talked about that before on the channel a bunch.
And going back to what you were saying too about being all over the place, me and Chris used to complain about that all the time with Big Love. Like, how the hell did he just get from Sandy to Tooele? he's by the smokestack. Be home in 5 minutes, hon. No, you won't. No, you won't.
That's at least 45 minutes minimum. If the traffic's good.
That other Vegas movie that you couldn't stand either, that Pay It Forward, did that.
Well, so Pay It Forward, he got on a bike and he was suddenly at the Luxor from like North Las Vegas, which
Las Vegas,
like a 3-hour bus ride.
Oh, that's
Las Vegas
called, right?
has the worst public transportation unless you're on the Strip.
Dude, I was down there one time in July, and it was like 105 degrees, and the bus broke down.
Oh my gosh!
The full on like the axle, the drivetrain of the bus just like fell to the street, and we had to get out and walk, and it was like 105 degrees outside. It was crazy. It was right there, right next to Circus.
Oh man,
it's crazy.
I haven't been to Vegas since 2011.
Yeah, it's been a minute for me too. Every time I go there, though, I get eaten up. So was there a show? What's that movie that has, I want to say, Nicolas Cage? He like goes to Vegas.
leaving Las
Vegas.
Yeah, I haven't watched that one again.
That's a wild one.
There. Yeah. I should watch it again. There's a lot of those ones that are kind of set in Old Town Vegas that I'm interested in seeing. But the thing that used to drive me crazy too was CSI Vegas. And what would more often not happen in that one is like they'd show some montage of them driving through Vegas, and you're like, so if this is the map of Vegas, you guys just drove what you're telling me here?
3 times in the same place.
It's like the first Vegas movie ever made. Someone's like, let's show them going into the Strip. Okay, how are we going to do that? Just a bunch of different casinos thrown at you. Were we going to do it in any order? Who cares? Like, well, there's an order to it. When you drive on this side of the road, you only see these, and it's just like, oh no, we're going to land at the airport. The first thing we're going to see is the stratosphere. Obviously. But
I always imagined that people who lived in New York and Los Angeles, that's like that on crack. Because I remember I went to New York just because part of me was like, New York isn't even real. It's just the background of movies and TV shows or something. But,
I don't know. I want you to find out. Like, New Yorkers are proud people. They might be like, no, we don't mess around with that shit. When people film in New York City, if they're saying West 75th Street, it better be West 75th Street.
Maybe so. But I got, since I went and visited New York finally, now I kind of get obsessed whenever they mention a street or a place. I look it up in New York to see right where they're claiming they're at or something like that. And we walked all the way through it. It's not that hard to walk all of Manhattan, really. And
It's just a
It's
million
2
people.
miles by 8 miles. It's 2 miles.
There's just like
miles.
so many people. You get lost by like.
You could fit like a dozen Manhattan Islands in Salt Lake Valley.
So any driving montage in CSI Vegas, whenever they do it, like, hey, we got to get there quick. And if you were following the car would be like here, then here, then here. You're like, what is this car doing? It doesn't.
I mean, these shows, do they not have like a consultant or something? You know, like these shows.
No, they didn't care. They were just.
Well, that's the thing, but they care.
We just want to show cool.
People.
We just want to show cool scenes.
How many people on a modern day TV show are there for equity things?
Oh yeah, but this is I'm talking back in old.
No, but I'm saying you can't get one person. You can't. There's not one person who lives in that city who could like tell you how to do this right. Like just hire a local and be like, hey, we're having this guy murdered in Sandy. Does it make sense to show Bountiful next? No.
So yeah, we went to Vegas. We went to New York, and I walked just like in a single day. I walked all of this, up through this, up down through here, up all this, you just basically all of mid and lower Manhattan. You could just, it was a lot of walking. We went all the way across one of these bridges and back, this bridge.
Did you visit it because you visited it?
I just wanted to see the places. I just wanted to see it. I didn't want to go in any of them or anything like that. It was kind of still COVID-y time. In fact, it's one of the only reasons I ended up getting the shots is because we were going there, and I never even wanted the dumb shots. But Vegas was so hardcore about it, and we already had the dumb tickets.
Did you guys see the graveyard, the Manhattan graveyard? Oh,
no, where's that? We got to watch.
It's over one of the bridges. Yeah, it's over one of the bridges, and it's like,
oh really?
It's massive. It's like, holy cow! How do you?
No, I didn't see it. So we walked. We saw the Trade Center. It was right at the 20th anniversary of the Trade Center. And then we came over here and walked across the Brooklyn Bridge and walked back and went through area of like, I don't know, Chinatown. And then what used to be where the Irish were over here. And the only part I kind of didn't really get a good idea of was like the east side here, like the meatpacking district and the area where the Friends are. The Friends are like Greenwich Village stuff, like right over here. So I didn't get up the east side right here at all.
We saw Greenwich Village when we went there.
But just walking in a single day, I basically weaved in and out of all of this, all the way up through here, all the way up to Central Park, and then all the way back down here. And we wouldn't even realize it. All of a sudden, we'd take a turn, and there was like, you know, the music hall, or what's called the Symphony Place, or the place where the Ghostbusters library, or the Empire State Building. It's just crazy. Or the NBC studios, you know, the place really blows my mind. I really can't even believe it exists still. It really melts my head. But I bet you for people, because I remember the movie, the Die Hard 3, where supposedly he has some sort of time where he's supposed to get all the way across Central Park, right? So he's supposed to get all the way across Central Park in some amount of time. And I remember people saying like, no, like, no, that's not happening. No chance, no way on earth. I guess the Ghostbusters, I looked up like the movie Ghost. That was like somewhere right in here. Then the movie Big was like somewhere right in here. Like I kind of got obsessed, like every single movie that was set in there, to look up right where supposedly it was supposed to take. And then Sex and the City, I've been watching Sex and the City, and I can't stand the show. And I didn't even realize that the show wasn't, when we were young, I thought it was okay written, and now I just think it's garbage. But it's the last show that was like really filmed out in New York. Nobody would ever film out in New York anymore. So like in the 90s, because it's too much, it costs too much, and they can't do it, and there's too much red tape to do it. So like watching Sex and the City in the 90s is the only thing you can ever watch of seeing what 90s New York streets actually look like, because they're filming all over New York City all the time. To me, it's almost kind of like an heirloom because of that. Like you can't see all of New York anymore in some show. Anyway, that got into other weird territory. It's a different world. It's a weird world. James was just saying last night he's watching Seinfeld, and I say I can't watch Seinfeld because it depresses me, and it kind of just depresses me because the world's gone. That world's gone like that. Like I watch it and I'm like, I can't watch this. I'm too woke to the stuff that would be problematic nowadays. And then beyond all that, and not that I think it's actually problematic, of course. And then beyond all that, it's just like that world's gone. That New York world's gone. That New York City's gone. That world of just, I don't know.
It's not just, it's funny when you say that, to be honest. I was watching Bob's Burgers the other day, And Gene, the youngest kid, I don't even know what he was talking about, but he was saying something. He's like, well, it's just like that's something that's special that's not there anymore. Like New York in the 90s. And New York in the 90s was special. And I know
he said that on the show.
Yeah, in Bob's Burgers.
Yeah, that's true. It's like whatever New York was in the 90s isn't there anymore. And the only reason I watched Second in the City is to see what that 90s New York, which was kind of like.
And I went there in 1998. That was my graduation present from my family and stuff. And I'm not going to lie, I haven't been back since then, but it felt so neat in the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it was about 1998.
It seemed like the hub of the world. It seemed like the place to be.
It was a really great trip. And I've not been back,
Seinfeld's like somewhere around here. It's somewhere around here that John Lennon died.
I was up there in 2008. We were in Manhattan. We took a bus from Manhattan up to Providence, Rhode Island. And then we took a train back from Providence back into Manhattan.
That'd be cool to see. Yeah, I didn't even see busy. Up here. I didn't get beyond the top of the park. I got like up to like right here.
Anthony lives in Washington Heights.
Where's Providence?
Oh, it's Rhode Island.
You
just take it. It's east of New York, goes up past through. We went and saw on the bus we stopped. They had a bunch of different stops on the way, and Atlantic City was one of them, and some stuff in Connecticut. Kind of just floated along all the way over up into.
It's so weird.
Providence.
It felt like a strange ghost town to me when I went there, but I mean, it was still mid-COVID, but there's still people saying that they're getting out. Like Michael Malice moved out of there because he's like,
yeah, he moved to Austin.
This ain't it anymore. This ain't where the people are. And I think like some of the point of all the stuff through the 70s, 80s, and 90s in New York is that anybody who's anybody is here.
Well, that's true, but that just fluctuates over time, right? Like it's like everything's temporary. I mean, look at Salt Lake's growing at 100,000 people a year. What maybe this place will be New York of the 90s in 100 years.
Yeah, which would actually be a nightmare for here. It actually is because they're talking about that promontory point. If they're going to get away from all gas stuff and they have trains coming through, and this will turn back into like the center hub of where most things from Canada, Mexico, California, West really kind of meet up right here. And that's why I think that's also kind of why they're pumping the green fears of Salt Lake so hard, is because they're trying to spook people out of here so that everybody else can move in, because it is going to become a major hub. I don't think their fears of this place turning into a nuclear wasteland. I think it's because this is going to be one of the areas for one of those dumb mega cities. I think this might be a perfect place for a mega city.
Probably is a perfect place for a mega city, which is why I need to make sure that I leave behind a music school here.
Yeah, Damon should hold on to his house right here, because even if it shoots down, I think it'll shoot back up again and that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's a good little beater.
Yeah, a beater that's $1 million in California, and just give it a couple years and it's $1 million here.
True. Well, that's when I first met Mark.
Yeah.
When I first met Mark
in
2006,
$3 million here.
When I first met Mark in 2006, the first time I visited him in Los Angeles was in 2007. And I was playing poker down there with him, and I was at his house, which was probably about the size of your mom's house, Chris, in 2007. And I was like, how much was your house? And he said $1 million. I was like, how? That's not. And now there's houses just like that in Bountiful and Murray that are $1 million, man.
Where does Chris's mom live?
Just over here in Murray.
Yeah, it's close to you. Yeah, and their house went up to like $600,000.
I'm in Midvale. Yeah.
Well, I'm in Midvale too.
He's right in between me and you, James.
I'm right by you.
Why haven't we hung out?
I tried once, but I couldn't find.
He was coming over, and I didn't see his call when he got there. We were messing with the puppy.
I couldn't stay there.
And I missed it. And I missed his call, and he was just right outside the window.
Well, yeah, you should have come back. I have AC.
Yeah, he was probably like just right outside the window from us too.
I just didn't know where it was. I didn't know the number.
And we were messing.
It was like 110 degrees outside that day. I was like, I can't. This is too hot. It was a hot day when you guys were coming out.
Well, we should get together. We get flip on. We play some Chinese poker, smoke some cigars, and maybe we'll put on. We should do like a poker session and put podcast on and talk in the middle of it.
I remember when James. I remember when James lived on Jefferson Street, and we went over there and played some poker over there. And my brother came with us, and my brother still, boasts that he took the whole table that day.
Did he?
That was his night. He had a really good night. That's one of his better nights I think he's ever had
That's one of the things with poker.
The
is
local poker.
Any single day you can be the king or the pauper. That's
exactly
you get to learn from.
And you go on these runs. It's unbelievable. Like you're like, I can just play anything.
Oh, all I have
win.
to do is do it that way every time, and I will just always win.
Yeah. And you don't realize you were on a heater, and those heaters go away.
People talk about that a lot with golf. Like they'll suddenly have a day of golf and like, oh, I just do that way all the time, and I'm great now. You know, like it's not so easy to just announce that now I'm going to do that good all the time.
That's
but yeah,
true, man.
I've had a tear at poker lately live, and I'm just waiting for the other foot to drop because there will be a day that I will take a big fat loss again.
And hopefully it's against me.
Yeah, well, we should do that. We should do that and make a podcast out of it. We should wrap this one up. I'll probably trim some stuff out of it if it's fluff, but not most of it. But if you
we should wrap this up.
If you think of anything that you didn't want in there, let me know. And
I will. But what I want to do is we should all read that Scruton thing more deep and come back and talk about it. I think it requires by all of us reading it a little bit better before we sit and fart our opinions on it, because it's a pretty deep topic.
Well, I mean, I think that's kind of the general theme of what I want to talk to you guys. Maybe I'll bring some of those guys on because they want to talk about music and poker
theory and stuff.
That sort of stuff. But yeah, this one's kind of more the angle of talking about story and the future AI of everything, and skill and sport and reality, testing yourself against reality type stuff.
Well, because that thing you showed me from Scruton, one of the things I had hoped to cover, but it's getting too late, was there's a reason why I dedicated that work specifically to him, but also I wrote that work specifically with what he basically told me is okay in mind. He's the first intellectual I ever came across that said it's okay to think that the 20th century had a lot of ugly aspects to it. You know what I mean? And so I even asked you, Chris, a couple weeks ago, how many professors have you had that probably their mission was to just kind of crap on everything as opposed to hold it up?
Yeah.
Anyway, and I think there's a lot of that involved with all of the things we've been talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of angles for sure.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and it's not
It's
exactly
crazy.
just sitting there roasting on woke stuff, even though that comes up too. But it's kind of more the battle of evermore of what the hell are we battling against here?
Well, the one thing you can pretty much guarantee with woke stuff is you can never really get into skill challenges, hero stories, because they don't exist in that realm of.
They don't like there's
processing. They throw all that stuff out with the baby with the bathwater kind of thing.
Like I was saying to you the other day, Chris,
doesn't match.
I don't know if I like the way they opened up the new Game of Thrones. It was just so in your face. Seriously.
Really?
Did you read my?
I haven't watched it. Yeah, I haven't watched it. I'm probably not going to watch it, but I've heard some people say they like it. I've watched some of the death scenes, but
I think you know how the good hero story, as Peterson says, is rescue the father. Yeah. This is kill the father,
fight the
destroy
father,
the father, kill the father. The father wants a male heir, but fate keeps killing all its male heirs. Why does this idiot get the porn?
That's the main thing that made Lord of the Rings the super thing, and it's the main reason why these dipshits, modern people, have no chance of writing this thing. Have you been watching it?
No, I've
only heard reviews.
I've watched the first episode. Oh, are you talking about Ring of Power?
You can't be a true Tolkien fan and think the new Ring of Power has any value.
It's like I said. It's like I was saying to Dorsey.
They destroyed it.
Dorsey was saying you're not going to give it a chance. I'm like, Tolkien wrote the Silmarillion, like a whole legend of what his stuff was. And they didn't use that. They're just fan fiction.
Dumb. I always say it's like, because why don't they do this with bands? Bands have like an IP name. So why don't they bring us out like new Pink Floyd, where they got a diverse young cast of 17 and 18-year-olds to bring us a new Pink Floyd and play us some new Pink Floyd, and we go, well, that's not Pink Floyd. And
exactly.
goes,
it's kind of like
how can they be Pink Floyd? The Pink Floyd's a bunch of old guys who grew up in post-war England who were super depressed. This little young diverse team of 17-year-olds.
Crazy singer guy. Yeah.
And Tolkien is that person too, and you can't have these little idiots even pretend to start to have the same ideas and brain into that. He's not even pretending.
Well, they would also force the identity. They'd be like, well, in order to make a new Pink Floyd, they can't be white guys. They got to be.
But that would be so obvious with bands.
Black women. Yeah.
They should just call it a new band if they got some new band of young, diverse people.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
They take the IP and they say, no, this is new Pink Floyd. Like, no, it's
So I
not.
thought-
No, this
I mean,
is not new
It's not even
rebound.
the same thing. Yeah.
I thought about this actually weirdly because of Iron Maiden. So a lot of people went to Iron Maiden, and I saw it all over Facebook. Iron Maiden. A lot of them were posting pictures of their kids. My son's first Iron Maiden concert, and my mind kept going, and probably it's last because they're going to die eventually. Like you know, like it's like Iron Maiden's not going to go on forever.
Megadeth
Right?
is coming.
You know,
Oh,
but
really?
Megadeth
these
is
are
coming.
bands.
Yeah.
These are bands.
Dave
that have-
Mustaine's based, man. He's way based.
Yeah,
I
these
wanna
are
go see
bands that
Megadeth.
have had these. They've had these careers of 40 plus years. You know what I mean? And I thought about it. Like I thought that weird thought. Like, what if like somebody just continues on Megadeth like Menudo? Right? Isn't Menudo like a band that like just keeps bringing in new members?
I think that's what they're trying to do. But at the same time, like I don't see how they don't understand, and nobody doesn't understand that it's just the same thing with these TV stories or movie stories. It's like if it's not the ideas of the person who made it, like what the hell are you doing?
So-
It's not.
Well, because I listen to the Beatles channel a lot.
Let's just bring back Milli Vanilli, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I listen to the Beatles channel a lot, and
We'll go
they
from there.
talk about the breakup. They talk about the breakup a lot, right? When the Beatles broke up, It's like, you know what? The Beatles did broke up. The Beatles had 10 years, and they were fantastic years. Rolling Stones have been together for over 50, but we only focus on those 10 good years of theirs. You know what I mean? It's hard to be a band. It's hard to be a band that has a 40-year career where you're not super nostalgic for the first 10 years of their career.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
all of them. Yeah.
And then
if you stop and think about it, it's kind of the same way how nations go, how a business goes, how
Seinfeld had the right mind was
Disney
only 9
went, how
episodes.
Seinfeld went. How
You got these 10 good years, you know what I mean, of being in that spotlight, which is why it's weird when you look at like the life of Beethoven or Mozart. It's like, wow, they had all good years. But now that they're dead, maybe during their lifetime, they just had those 10 good years. I hear these Paul McCartney songs that are really good that I've never heard, that he's clearly written in the last 50 years since the Beatles been broken up, you know what I mean? And it's like, he's written a lot of really good songs that I don't know that are really freaking good though. And maybe I just won't know about them as much because those are going to be really popular in 150 years. But we're all going.
He's written a lot of stinkers though.
Oh, of course. But those ones no one will remember. I'm saying I've heard songs and I'm like, wow, this will be a more popular Paul McCartney song than Blackbird in 100 years.
I don't know.
You know, I can't remember the one that I heard the other day. It was so good. I don't like the words to Who's That Knocking at the Door, but the music's really good.
Mm-hmm.
I like Jet, and I like Maybe I'm Amazed and whatever. But a lot of his new
Music.
stuff.
Oh, I heard a song the other day about going to
What
work
was that?
and clocking in.
What was that For You song? For you.
Yeah. That's
Or
the one I just heard that. I just heard that the other day, and I was like, Paul, what are you doing? Yeah, I get that. Anyway, so if we got to wrap up, we should wrap it up.
Right on.
But let's hang
Good
out.
talk.
Can we hang out in
I'll edit
person
it up.
again?
Yeah. We should do it. We should do the Chinese poker and tape it. We can tape it. We can make a podcast out of it.
All
Porch
right.
time. Real porch time.
Yeah.
So
Real
we'll be
porch time,
real.
man.
We'll be together in a real room and playing. Okay.
Yeah, and I'll
Let's
just
do
put a
that.
mic in the
Can't
middle
really
of
play.
it.
Can't really play virtually.
Yeah, I'll
All
put
right,
a mic
guys.
in the middle of it. Yeah. All right.
I'll see you later.
Thanks,
Late.
guys.
Nice.
Yeah,
you.
talk soon. Bye.
Bye.